322 Easter eggs in LEGO Simpsons, starting with some in the Simpsons house set. The Simpsons family car has a dent built into the design on purpose, which is the complete opposite of what you'd normally expect from a LEGO set. The official LEGO description even jokes about it, saying, "Because only in a LEGO world are dents a plus." In the show, Homer crashes this car constantly. It's literally always falling apart, and yet somehow it just keeps running. That dent in particular has been on the car since season 1, so even though it's technically a flaw, it's a very important and famous detail that makes the car complete. Obviously, Homer's behavior with this car is anything but good, but it might be even worse with his next door neighbor, Ned Flanders. Homer is literally always stealing stuff from Ned, whether it's a lawnmower, a bunch of fans to power a wind turbine, or his literal credit card. Ned always has something that Homer wants, but one of his most memorable robberies is when he stole Ned's air conditioner. He took it right out of his window and put a hole in the wall of his own house just to be able to use it. In the LEGO set, it's attached to Lisa's room on the second floor, and it reads clear as day, property of Ned Flanders. Because of how famous this stealing gag has been over the years, LEGO couldn't make this set without referencing it. The thing is though, Homer's not the only one causing chaos in the neighborhood. Bart's skateboard ramp has his signature El Bardo graffiti tag on it, which makes sense since that's where he'd be skating. But here's where it gets interesting. The same tag is also on the dumpster behind the Quickie Mart and on the wall of the back of the Krusty Burger. LEGO made sure Bart's vandalism spread across these 3 sets, so if you own all 3 and display them together, it's like Bart's been causing trouble all over Springfield, just like how we would in the show. It's such a cool way to connect the sets and make them feel like they're part of the same world instead of just standalone builds. But now that I'm thinking about it, there's something I forgot to tell you about the family car. If you open the trunk, you'll find a glowing green radioactive bar from the nuclear power plant. But why is it there? Well, in the opening credits for literally every Simpsons episode, Homer is seen handling some sort of radioactive tube at work. But his shift ends, and instead of putting it down carefully, he stops caring about it, and it flies into his shirt. So this green tube in the trunk is a reference to how clumsy Homer is, even when he's handling something that could literally kill him. Anyways, now that the car is out of the way, let's head inside the house, because there are just as many details in there as there are on the outside. First off, the living room TV is playing the Itchy and Scratchy Show, which is the ultra-violent cartoon that Bart and Lisa watch religiously. For anyone who doesn't know, Itchy and Scratchy is basically Tom and Jerry, but way more violent and ridiculous. It's referenced constantly throughout the series, so putting it on the TV instead of leaving it blank shows LEGO actually cared about the small stuff. Most people would have just made the TV one solid color and moved on, but LEGO really went the extra mile. Moving upstairs to Bart's bedroom, his lucky red hat is on top of his bookshelf, but it's designed not to fit on his head. The hat's too small to go over his hairpiece, so you physically can't put it on him even if you wanted to. This is LEGO making a meta joke about their own limitations. They knew people would try to put the hat on Bart, and they knew it wouldn't work, so they just leaned into it. It's sitting there as an accessory piece, taunting you because you can't actually use it the way you want to. On the same floor, there's also a picture of Grandpa Simpson at the top of the staircase. This is a really nice detail that LEGO could have easily left out, since Grandpa doesn't live in the house. But including it really shows how meticulous the designers were with every little part of this set. But they didn't stop there, because they did the same thing for the minifigures too. Homer and Bart's minifigures changed LEGO forever, and most people don't even know about it. Their arms are molded in 2 separate colors instead of being painted. Homer has white upper arms for his shirt and yellow lower arms for his skin. Before the Simpsons theme, LEGO had never done this. If they wanted different colored arms, they'd either paint them or just abandon the idea and make the whole arm one color. Bart's arms and legs are the same way too. His shorts are a different color than his legs, and his upper arms are a different color than his lower arms. This technique became standard after the Simpsons theme, so now pretty much every minifigure with different colored molds uses this technique. The Simpsons theme literally changed how LEGO makes minifigures, so not only is it super memorable, but it changed LEGO as we know it. Alright, now that we've covered the house, let's move on to the Quickie Mart, because this set might have even more details than the house. Inside the freezer, there's a guy named Jasper frozen solid in a block of ice. In the episode Lisa the Simpson, Jasper freezes himself so he can wake up in the future, and he turns into a tourist attraction at the Quickie Mart called Frostilicus. This is a pretty famous bit in the show, so most of you probably knew exactly what it was, but let's see if that's the case for this next reference. If you look at the top of the Quickie Mart, you'll find a very out-of-place vegetable garden. So why is it here? Well, in the episode Lisa the Vegetarian, Apu reveals that he's actually vegan, and takes Lisa up to the roof to show her his secret garden. He tells her he comes up here to escape the world, like he can't be vegan in public or something. Lego adding this garden shows they weren't just pulling references from popular episodes, they were going deep. Most companies would just have the store itself, but Lego added this tiny detail that most people wouldn't even know to look for. The details don't stop there though. If you look closely at the newspapers in the Quickie Mart, you'll see a guy named Bumblebee Man on one of them, and this guy is barely in the show. He's a Spanish-speaking TV actor in a bumblebee costume, who usually only appears for a few seconds at a time. So Lego putting him on a background newspaper that most people will never notice is the definition of a small hidden detail. You have to actively search for it, and even then you might miss it. Don't think we're done with the Quickie Mart though, because around back in the storage closet, there's a rat, cheese, and a rat hole. The Quickie Mart is constantly shown to be kinda gross throughout the show, with expired food and questionable hygiene. So Lego adding a full-on rat infestation to the storage area is perfect. It's not something you'd normally expect Lego to add, but it makes the set authentic. But Lego pays attention to detail across everything, even TV. In the Simpsons crossover episode, Brick Like Me, Baby Maggie is made out of Duplo instead of regular Lego. Duplo is Lego's toddler line with bigger pieces, so using it for Maggie is genius. Homer even says,
"Oh, they're so cute when they're Duplo,"
in the episode. It's one of the funniest visual gags in the whole thing, and it works really well because everyone knows what Duplo is. The crazy part about that episode is that it took over 2 years to animate, which is way longer than the usual 6 to 8 months for a regular Simpsons episode. Animating everything in Lego instead of the show's usual style was incredibly time consuming. And here's the crazy part, the Simpsons team didn't even know about the Lego movie until late in production. Both the Brick Like Me episode and the Lego movie were being made at the same time, without either team knowing what the other was doing. So any similarities are completely coincidental. 2 years for one episode is insane, but when you watch it, honestly, it makes sense. One thing I haven't talked about yet though are minifigures, and one that I absolutely have to talk about is Grandpa Simpson. Grandpa's minifigure comes with a newspaper that says "Old Man Yells at Cloud." If you've been on the internet at any point in the last 10 years, you've seen this meme before. It's used constantly to make fun of people complaining about nothing, and it's one of the most famous images from the entire show. Lego could have put anything on that tile piece, but they chose something that everybody can laugh at, and it worked out perfectly. Another thing I haven't talked about yet is the Krusty Burger set that came out this year. This was one of the biggest pieces of Lego news in all of 2025. So of course Lego had to deliver and absolutely pack this set with references. So let's go over a few of them. The first one is actually advertised on Lego's website. When you scroll through the pictures, you'll find this weird picture of Homer scooping Lego transparent tiles into the trunk of his car. To regular people, this is just another picture in the listing, but to die-hard Simpsons fans, this is a reference to Season 6, Episode 15, Homie the Clown, when Homer drove over to the Krusty Burger and started stealing grease right from the grease trap. He was trying to sell it to make a profit, which is very typical for Homer. But this isn't the only reference to this episode in the Krusty Burger set. The car itself is actually a reference too. So far, every set for The Simpsons has a car in it. The Simpsons house had the regular family car, and the Quickie Mart had Chief Wiggum's car. So Lego continued the trend with the Krusty Burger set, but they made it look completely different. You might be wondering why Homer would ever drive around in a clown car, but if you've seen the episode Homie the Clown, you already know the answer. In this episode, Homer sees a billboard for clown school and gets a job as Krusty the Clown. The entire episode is dedicated to Homer living his new clown life, so of course his whip had to get a makeover. It's crazy though, because there's still another reference to this episode in the Krusty Burger set. This episode has one of the funniest scenes ever, where the Hamburglar is fake stealing giant burgers for an ad campaign, and instead of going along with it, Homer beats the bricks out of him. The kids in the audience are completely traumatized, and one of them even begs Homer to stop. Once some people finally pull Homer off of him, it's clear he's in bad shape, but he might have been in worse shape than we thought, because on the back of the Krusty Burger, there's a missing poster with his face on it. This is obviously a reference to the clip of the kid yelling that he's dead, and I have to say, this reference is really well done. There's some other stuff on the wall next to this poster that are references too. I already talked about Bart's graffiti tag and how it really ties all three sets together, but the other stuff is referencing Sideshow Bob. In Season 6, he ran for mayor of Springfield, so that's why the voting sticker is there. But if you notice, there's also a voting sticker for a rake. In any other universe, this wouldn't make any sense, but as we all know, Sideshow Bob has some really bad luck when it comes to stepping on rakes. For some reason, they always seem to find him, and he always steps on them and hits himself in the face. It's really cool how everything here is referencing certain episodes, and there's a sticker inside that keeps that train going. Right next to the entrance to the play place, there's a poster on the wall advertising the Mother Nature Burger, but considering how that went, they should probably just take it down. This is from the finale of season 20, Coming to Homerica, when the Krusty Burger gets named the unhealthiest fast food place in the world.
Studies show your Krusty Burger is the unhealthiest fast food item in the world.
Krusty tried to fight the allegations by making a vegetarian burger, otherwise known as the Mother Nature Burger, but one of the ingredients got contaminated by rat meat. Ew, dude. So not only was it not vegetarian, but everyone ended up getting food poisoning too. Oh, and just like how the car was made after the Homie the Clown episode, Krusty's minifigure is based on his outfit from Coming to Homerica, which is a really nice touch. To end the video, I'm going to show you the most famous detail in all of LEGO Simpsons. Pretty much every set in the Brickheadz theme has a fun Easter egg inside of them somewhere. Woody from Toy Story has a stuffing piece, Eve from WALL-E has a plant, you get the idea. The Easter eggs are always references to the character. Another thing Brickheadz always have though are pink 2x2 bricks for brains, but Homer has something a little different. Because of how stupid he is, they gave him a 1x1 plate instead. If there was a way to somehow cram a crayon in there too, that would have been sick. But I'm definitely not complaining about the plate piece. So those are 25 small details in LEGO Simpsons. But let's look at the Ribwitch references in the Krusty Burger set. In season 14, episode 12, I'm spelling as fast as I can, the Ribwitch is introduced as the Krusty Burger's limited time sandwich. It's made from some mystery animal meat that's been molded into the shape of ribs, and Homer becomes absolutely obsessed with it. He literally follows a tour of Ribwitch fans called Ribheads across the country just to keep eating them before they're discontinued forever. Because of this, Homer's minifigure in the set has a stain from the Ribwitch, and if you go into the restaurant, you can actually find one sitting on one of the tables. But there's also a sticker in the set that shows the Ribwitch mascot, Ribbit. Ribbit is only on screen for like 30 seconds in the entire Ribwitch episode, but he's unforgettable. He's the guy in a Toad costume who's completely soaked in Ribwitch sauce, and in the episode, he encourages people to lick his costume to get a free sample of the sauce. It's disgusting and hilarious at the same time, and it's exactly the kind of thing Krusty would do to promote his food. So LEGO turned Ribbit into a minifigure for a Ribwitch advertisement poster. But let's move into the kitchen, because there are a ton of references in here. If you look at the order screen, it says the next order is for 700 Krusty Burgers. And if you know your Simpsons episodes, you know exactly what this is from. In season 5, episode 8, Boy Scouts in the Hood, Homer, Bart, Ned Flanders, and Rod Flanders end up stranded at sea after a camping trip goes wrong. They're starving and dehydrated, and then out of nowhere, they find a Krusty Burger in the middle of the ocean on an unmanned oil rig, which makes absolutely no sense, but it's The Simpsons, so it doesn't have to. Homer runs through the doors and screams,
Give me 700 Krusty Burgers!
so LEGO putting that exact number on the screen is a very obvious reference to this moment. Further into the kitchen, you can find a crate of Krusty Burger coleslaw, and it's labeled Best by February 1994. This is just a perfect representation of how disgusting the Krusty Burger really is. Throughout the entire show, it's shown as the lowest quality, most unhealthy fast food restaurant in all of Springfield. But somehow, not everything in the kitchen is that terrible. The burgers actually have lettuce and tomatoes on them, which is super weird for the Krusty Burger. In the show, the burgers are notoriously unhealthy and barely have any real ingredients, especially vegetables. But here's the thing. In season 20, episode 21, Coming to Homerica, Krusty launches a new burger called the Mother Nature Burger. It's supposed to be a healthy vegetarian burger. And look, it actually has lettuce and tomatoes on it. And since the LEGO burgers do too, this probably means that these burgers are actually Mother Nature burgers. There's already an ad for them in the set, so I guess including the burgers themselves makes a lot of sense. But now let's look at the cash registers, because they have two different prices on them, and they're both actually references to different things. The first register shows $6.15, and this is referencing season 6, episode 15, Homie the Clown. That's the episode where Krusty opens a clown college to make money, and Homer enrolls in it. It's a classic Simpsons episode, but the second register shows $847.63, and this reference is even better. In the original Simpsons opening sequence, Marge is checking out at the grocery store with Maggie, but the cashier accidentally scans her instead of the groceries, and the register shows $847.63. For years, fans wondered what the number actually meant, and eventually it was revealed that when The Simpsons first started in 1989, this was the estimated monthly cost of raising a baby in the United States. Clearly, the designers really did their homework for this set, because there's also a Drederick Tatum grill in the kitchen, which is a parody of the George Foreman grill. If you don't know who Drederick Tatum is, he's the heavyweight boxing champion in The Simpsons, and he's basically their version of George Foreman. George Foreman was a real-life boxer who became a household name in the 90s and 2000s because of the George Foreman grill. He endorsed it everywhere, and it became one of the most successful celebrity products ever. So The Simpsons took that same idea and made a Drederick Tatum grill for the Simpsons universe. It's one of those jokes where if you know the real-world reference and the show, it's instantly funny. Now, if you look right outside the kitchen, there's a poster that says slide whistle lessons, and this is a reference to Sideshow Mel. If you don't know who Sideshow Mel is, he's Krusty's current sidekick on the Krusty the Clown show. After Sideshow Bob went to prison, Krusty needed a new sidekick, so he hired Mel, and on the show, he always talks using a slide whistle. There's no clear indicator that this is actually Mel's ad, but if you know The Simpsons, you know it couldn't be anyone else. Right next to this poster, though, is the bathroom, and it has one of the funniest details in the whole set. In the show, the bathroom in the Krusty Burger literally never has toilet paper, and since these designers are clearly Simpsons superfans, they designed it with a Technic pin sticking out of one of the walls to represent an empty toilet paper holder. This might be the smallest detail in this whole video, but I low-key think it's the best one. Anyways, now let's move over to the Simpsons house set. Like I said in the intro, I missed small details in all 4 Simpsons sets, but the funny thing is, I only missed 2 details in the Simpsons house, and they're both basically the same thing. First, there's a barbecue that says property of Ned Flanders on it, and second, there's a wheelbarrow that also says property of Ned Flanders on it. Both of these are obviously referencing how Homer steals stuff from Ned. In my first video, I talked about the air conditioner, so I guess I should have known there'd be way more of his stuff in this set. But now, let's move to the Quickie Mart, because this is where I missed the most details, and a lot of them are actually on the outside of the building, so let's start there. First up, there's a wanted poster that says wanted for treason, and this is from season 7, episode 16, Lisa the Iconoclast. In this episode, Lisa is doing a school project on Jebediah Springfield, who's the founder of Springfield and a local hero. But while she's researching at the museum, she discovers something shocking. Jebediah Springfield wasn't actually a hero. He was a pirate named Hans Sprungfield who tried to assassinate George Washington. Along with finding his confession, she also finds his wanted poster, which shows that he was wanted for treason against the United States. And somehow it ended up on the Quickie Mart. Right next to the wanted poster, there's a missing cats poster, and this is a reference to the crazy cat lady. Her whole thing is that she walks around town screaming gibberish and throwing cats at people that pass by her house. And I guess she threw 30 of them, because that's how many she's looking for on her poster. There's also an advertisement for the Leftorium, which is Ned Flanders' store that only sells products for left-handed people. It's been in a few different episodes, but it's most famously in season 3, episode 7, when Flanders failed. Again, this is another classic episode, because Homer actually ends up feeling bad for Ned, which is the complete opposite of how he usually feels. But one of the most recognizable posters on the outside of the Quickie Mart is the Spider Pig poster. This is referencing a scene from the Simpsons movie, which came out in 2007. In the movie, Homer adopts a pig that he names Plopper, but he also calls him Spider Pig. There's this whole scene where Homer makes Plopper walk on the ceiling and sings a whole song for him.
Spider Pig does whatever a Spider Pig does.
It's one of the most memorable moments from the movie, and it became a huge meme online. There's also a Springfield seafood poster featuring Blinky the three-eyed fish. Blinky is one of the most iconic recurring characters in The Simpsons, and he represents the pollution caused by Mr. Burns' nuclear power plant. He first appeared way back in season 2, episode 4, 2 cars in every garage and 3 eyes on every fish, where Bart catches him in the river near the power plant. But this specific poster in the Lego set is actually based on a billboard from season 22, episode 20, Homer Homer Scissorhands, so it's referencing a very particular moment in the show. Alright, that's everything on the outside of the Quickie Mart, so now let's go inside, because there are even more details in there. When you walk into the Quickie Mart, the first thing you see is all the merchandise for sale, and there are a bunch of magazines, newspapers, and cards on the shelves, and they're all actually references to different things. First up, there are Angry Dad comics. If you don't remember, Angry Dad is a webcomic that Bart made in season 13, episode 21, I Am Furious Yellow. The comic is based on Homer and all of his anger issues, and Bart draws it after realizing how much his dad yells about literally everything. The comic actually becomes really popular in the episode, and it even gets turned into a cartoon. Next to the Angry Dad comics, there's a magazine called Mom Monthly, and this is something Marge actually reads in the show. In the opening sequence, Marge is in line at the grocery store with Maggie, and she's reading Mom Monthly while she waits. The Quickie Mart also has Valentine's cards for sale, and 2 of them are from season 4, episode 15, I Love Lisa. The first card says Let's Be Friends, with a picture of a bee on it, and the second one says You're Appealing, with a picture of a banana and a monkey. Both of these cards are in the episode, which is one of the most beloved episodes in Simpsons history. The episode is all about Lisa giving Ralph Wiggum a Valentine out of pity because she feels bad that no one else gave him one. But Ralph completely misinterprets it and thinks Lisa has a crush on him. The whole episode is about Ralph being obsessed with Lisa, and Lisa trying to figure out how to let him down easy. At the end, Lisa gives Ralph the Let's Be Friends card, and Ralph actually laughs at the pun and accepts it. But while all of that was going on, Homer was picking out cards too. While he was looking, he came across the You're Appealing card and thought it was really funny, since, you know, they're monkeys. An episode like this is more than worthy of 2 callbacks, but the Quickie Mart also has 2 newspapers for sale. The first one is the Springfield Shopper, which is the main newspaper in Springfield. The specific cover story in the Lego set is from season 14, episode 17, 3 Gays of the Condo. The second newspaper is the Springfield Inquisitor, which is a tabloid. This one is from season 18, episode 16, Homerazzi. In that episode, Homer becomes a paparazzi photographer and starts taking embarrassing photos of Springfield celebrities. The Springfield Inquisitor is the tabloid that publishes his photos, and it's basically their version of a gossip magazine. Another thing the Quickie Mart sells is obviously food, and there are 2 specific food items in the set that reference different things. First, there are power sauce bars in the back. These are from season 9, episode 23, King of the Hill. In this episode, Homer decides to climb the Murderhorn, which is Springfield's version of the Matterhorn from Europe. He trains by eating power sauce bars, which are advertised as being made with 6 different kinds of apples and full of healthy energy. Homer believes this and eats them constantly while climbing the mountain, but then he finds out the truth. Power sauce bars aren't made with apples at all. They're made from apple cores and old Chinese newspapers. There's also Soup for One in the Quickie Mart, and this is a reference to Edna Krabappel. Edna was Bart's teacher for most of the series, and she was known for being cynical, divorced, and lonely. Soup for One is supposed to represent single-serving meals for people who live alone, so obviously Edna was always buying them. But of course, she'd have to pay cash, because there's a sticker that says, no checks, credit cards, or food stamps. This poster has been inside the real Quickie Mart forever, and obviously Apu is extremely cheap and wants to make as much money as possible, so Lego didn't really have a choice but to include this sticker. The last thing I'll show you in the Quickie Mart is actually hidden on the ceiling. Right above the coffee bar and the donut cabinet, there's a little heart with Apu's name and his wife Manjula, even though all she does is nag him for pretty much the entire show. But it's still cute. Anyways, the last small detail I'll show you is actually in the Homer Simpson Brickhead set. We all know about the smaller pink piece being used for his brain, but Homer's also hiding something else. You can actually open his stomach like a drawer and find 3 donuts inside. Obviously, Homer is basically in love with donuts, so it's only right that he gets to live out his fantasy in Lego form too. It's not just sets either. The minifigures reference a bunch of stuff. So let's start with everyone's favorite little rascal, Bart. Bart comes with his lime green skateboard, but the hidden gem is his back printing. He has a slingshot printed on his back that goes down onto his shorts, which actually wasn't on him in the Simpsons house set, which came out first. So this was a really cool addition that no one expected. The slingshot is Bart's signature weapon for his pranks throughout Springfield, so obviously Lego had to include it. They could have just given him a physical slingshot piece as an accessory and called it a day, but instead they went the extra mile and made it part of his design. Before we keep going though, I need to tell you something special about these minifigs from Series Series 1, because this wasn't just any regular release. Series 1 was the very first licensed collectible minifigure series LEGO ever made. Before this, every minifigure pack was just generic LEGO characters, but The Simpsons changed everything, and paved the way for Disney, DC, and Marvel series that followed. But it gets even crazier, because every single Simpsons minifigure has a unique head mold to match how they look in the show. This was the first time LEGO created an entire series without a single standard headpiece, which is honestly insane when you think about it. They could have just slapped some printed faces on regular heads and moved on, but they didn't. They made custom molds for every single character, and that's part of what makes these minifigures so memorable. Anyways, next let's talk about Maggie, because she comes with one of the best references in the entire series. Her accessory is Bobo, Mr. Burns' childhood teddy bear, and this references the Season 5 episode Rosebud, which is a full-on parody of Citizen Kane where Mr. Burns desperately searches for his lost teddy bear.
Give me my bear, Simpson.
Only to find out that Maggie has it. The attention to detail on this thing is ridiculous. Bobo has a tear on his belly showing stuffing, a dangling eye, and really rough stitching, just like how he is in the episode. Speaking of attention to detail, Ralph Wiggum comes with one of the most heartbreaking Simpsons references ever. He has a Valentine's Day card with a train reading "I choose you," which is from Season 4, Episode 15, I Love Lisa. In this episode, Lisa gives Ralph this card out of pity, but Ralph actually thought she liked him, which led to one of the saddest moments in the entire show. But did you know that this was actually based on a real story? Screenwriter Al Jean got a similar Valentine in 3rd grade, and he loved it so much that he had the phrase inscribed on his wedding ring. So this isn't just a reference to the show, it's a reference to a real-life event that inspired the episode, and now it's a LEGO accessory. But now let's talk about Grandpa, because his accessory might be the most famous one in the entire theme. He comes with a newspaper that says "Old Man Yells at Cloud," and if you've been on the internet at all since like 2015, you've seen this meme before. It comes from Season 13, Episode 13, The Old Man and the Key, where Abe uses this newspaper clipping as the photo for his driver's license. The image has become one of the most popular Simpsons memes on the internet, so putting it on an actual printed tile is genius. They could have put anything on that piece, but they chose something everyone's seen before, which was a great idea. Ned Flanders might be more perfect though, because he comes with 2 accessories, and both of them tell you everything you need to know about his character. The first one is a toolbox that says "Property of Ned Flanders," which is obviously referencing how Homer is always stealing his stuff. But the second one is way more interesting. It's a white mug that says "I Heart Southpaws," which references Ned being left-handed. He's extremely proud to be a lefty, so much in fact that he opened the Leftorium, a store selling products for left-handed people in the episode when Flanders failed from Season 3. The store isn't talked about in that many episodes, but Ned being left-handed is a pretty important trait for his character. But now let's jump to Series 2, because this is where things really start getting interesting. Homer shows up in his formal blue suit carrying a heart-shaped box of chocolates, and Marge is wearing her elegant orange dress with white gloves, red lipstick, a blue purse, and red flowers. Both of these outfits directly reference Season 1, Episode 13, Some Enchanted Evening. In this episode, Homer brings Marge a wilted rose and chocolates to apologize for neglecting her, and they go on a romantic date. But did you know that this was actually supposed to be the first Simpsons episode ever? It was the original pilot, but it had to be delayed and reanimated because of severe quality issues. The animation was so bad that they just could not air it first, so they had to push it back and fix it. So not only is LEGO technically referencing the first episode ever made, they're also referencing an episode with a really cool story behind it, which makes it even better. Series 2 also gave us Bartman, which is Bart's superhero alter ego. Bartman first appeared in Season 2, Episode 21, 3 Men and a Comic Book, when Bart needed a costume for a comic convention discount. But he's more famously known for Season 18's Revenge is a Dish Best Served 3 Times, that had a full Batman parody origin story. His accessory is his trusty slingshot, which makes sense since obviously he's still Bart. But the thing is, Bartman isn't the only superhero in Series 2, because Milhouse shows up as Fallout Boy. Milhouse is wearing a green mask, a blue costume, and a lime green cape. And this references Season 7, Episode 2, Radioactive Man from 1995. In the episode, Milhouse was casted as Fallout Boy in the Radioactive Man movie, beating out Bart, who was an inch too short. There's something you might not know about Fallout Boy, though. The band Fallout Boy actually got their name from this character after someone shouted it out in the crowd at one of their first shows. So not only is this a reference to The Simpsons, but it's also a reference to a real band that was inspired by the show. Lisa also makes an appearance in Series 2, and her accessory is Snowball 2, the family's black black cat. Snowball 2 replaced the original Snowball, who was white, and shows up all throughout the show. The Simpsons family just isn't complete without their pets, so it's a good thing Santa's Little Helper also came to play in Series 2. So if you collect both series, you can actually have the entire Simpsons family with all of their pets. It's one of those things where LEGO clearly planned it out from the beginning, making sure collectors had a reason to buy both series to complete the family. But now let's talk about Hans Moleman, because this guy might be one of the most tragic characters in all of Springfield. He's always dying in different accidents, only to come back later like nothing even happened. But his accessory is a printed tile of his revoked driver's license. This references the episode Principal Charming, where he fails his driver's test not once, but twice. He failed the first time because of an eye exam, but the second time he failed as soon as he hit the gas pedal. Somehow this guy is 31 years old with cataracts so bad that he can't even see, and this driver's license bit is one of his best, so of course LEGO had to give him one to honor it. Moving on to Edna Krabappel, Bart's 4th grade teacher, she comes with a pink mug and a printed tile showing Woodrow, which is actually a picture of NHL legend Gordie Howe. This references season 3 episode 16, Bart the Lover, where Bart pranks his lonely teacher by catfishing her as a man named Woodrow using Howe's photo. But here's where the backstory gets interesting. The writers originally wanted to use Johnny Unitas, but couldn't get the rights, so Al Jean, who is a Detroit Red Wings fan, suggested Gordie Howe instead. But Waylon Smithers has one of my favorite references in this whole video. He comes with a Malibu Stacy doll that of course has a new hat, which is from season 5 episode 14, Lisa vs. Malibu Stacy. In this episode, we find out that Smithers has the world's biggest Malibu Stacy collection, and we see him running with all of the little girls to try and get the doll first, which is obviously hilarious, but he's got to build up his collection somehow. Actually, I lied before. The accessory with Dr. Hibbert might actually be my favorite. He comes with an x-ray of Homer's brain, but it isn't just any x-ray. It's referencing season 12, episode 9, Homer with no E, where we find out why Homer's so stupid. When he was a kid, he had a habit of shoving crayons up his nose, and apparently one of them never came back. Eventually, it made its way up to his brain, and made Homer into the stupid guy we all know. The best part of this episode is when Homer asks his doctor how he never noticed the crayon before, and Hibbert tells him his thumb always covered it up on the x-rays.
My thumb must have covered up the crayon every time.
It's such a ridiculous explanation, but it fits perfectly with the show's humor. All of these minifigures so far have been in packs, so now let's talk about some that came in actual sets. Homer in the Krusty Burger set has a stain on his shirt, and this is a reference to the Rib Witch. For anyone who doesn't know, the Rib Witch is this legendary sandwich from season 14, episode 15, I'm spelling as fast as I can, where Homer becomes completely obsessed with it. He follows the Rib Witch tour around the country like a rock band, and the sandwich becomes this mythical thing that everyone wants.
I'll give you anything for it.
Homer literally can't get enough of them, so it only makes sense that he'd have a stain on his shirt. I mean, this is Homer we're talking about here. Krusty the Clown in the Krusty Burger set also has a special outfit. It's a reference to the episode Coming to Homerica from season 20, where Krusty launches a veggie burger campaign. In the episode, the Krusty Burger gets named the unhealthiest fast food place in the world.
Studies show your Krusty Burger is the unhealthiest fast food item in the world.
So Krusty tries to fight the allegations by making a vegetarian burger called the Mother Nature Burger. But unfortunately, one of the ingredients got contaminated by rat meat. So not only was it not vegetarian, but everyone ended up getting food poisoning too. LEGO basing Krusty's outfit on this episode is pretty good, because it's one of his most memorable business failures, and there really are a lot of them. There's one other real Simpsons set, the Quickie Mart, and in this one, Chief Wiggum got something special that he'd never gotten before. This version of him comes with donut stains printed on his uniform and in the corner of his mouth. This is a direct nod to his cop and donut stereotype from the show, and honestly, it's such a simple detail that makes the minifigure so much better. Chief Wiggum is constantly eating donuts throughout the series, and since he's right outside the place he's always buying them from, it's no wonder he has stains all over himself. It's the kind of thing where LEGO could have easily left it out and nobody would have complained, but they added it anyway because it makes the character so much more authentic. These minifigures are hiding more than just references though. The Simpsons minifigures were the first ones to have short legs molded in 2 different colors to make shorts like they did for Bart. Before this, if LEGO wanted to make shorts, they'd either paint them or give up and make each leg one color. But the Simpsons changed that forever. A lot of minifigures these days have multicolor molds for their legs, and it's all because of the Simpsons. They didn't just revolutionize molds though. Itchy and Scratchy were some of the first minifigures to have fully rubber heads. Remember, these guys came out back in 2014, and back then, it really wasn't that common to find a minifigure like this. The only one I can think of is the shark from the Atlantis theme, which came out a few years before, but now there are loads of minifigures with rubber heads. The Simpsons minifigures were not only a huge success, but they were a great experiment experiment that showed LEGO what they could get away with. The cool thing about the minifigs in Series 1 is that they were in the special episode Brick Like Me from Season 25, Episode 20, which came out just a few days after the minifigures were released. In the episode, Homer wakes up in a LEGO version of Springfield, and it's basically one giant love letter to LEGO. The timing of this episode couldn't be better, and I think we can all agree that it's a good thing the ones in real life didn't come out like the ones from the episode. The custom head molds look so much better. In Alpha Team, the main villain was a guy named Ogle, and his whole plan was to use things called mind control orbs to turn ordinary LEGO town citizens into mindless zombies he called skeleton drones. His endgame was launching a rocket full of these orbs into the atmosphere to enslave every living person on the planet. This was the actual marketed storyline for a toy that was made for 6-year-olds, and it ran for 4 years and got multiple waves of sets. The skeleton drones looked like regular skeletons with a faceplate that felt sort of off. And if that wasn't creepy enough, the name Ogle is just LEGO spelled backwards, because he was literally made to represent the complete opposite of everything LEGO stands for. But dark storylines weren't just in Alpha Team. Monster Fighters from 2012 had this whole setup where Lord Vampire woke up in his castle inside the monster realm, found 6 magical moonstones, and built a machine that could block out the sun once all 6 moonstones were collected. The catch was that he was already close. The moonstones had been hidden centuries ago specifically to stop this from happening. And now the monster fighters were racing through a swamp marsh, a ghost train, a graveyard, and a crazy scientist's lab just to get them first. For a completely original theme and only one wave of sets, the lore goes way deeper than most people realize, and it makes the sets feel a lot more interesting when you actually know what's going on. But nobody committed to a dark concept harder than Hidden Side. The theme wasn't just about ghosts haunting a spooky mansion. The ghosts were possessing people, and it wasn't subtle either. Lots of minifigures in the theme had more than one version of themselves, one of their regular selves and one after they'd been possessed. Minifigures like Dwayne, Scott Franz's, Chef Enzo, and others all had a possessed version of themselves. And the craziest part is it was all for a play feature. LEGO literally designed the theme so kids would swap out the minifigs and simulate ghosts possessing people. The sets themselves weren't subtle either. The Newberry Haunted High School set looks completely normal when you first see it, but the entire set can physically transform into a haunted version of itself. It's way creepier than a regular ghost set because it's not a haunted house. The house itself somehow got possessed. And if you think about it in the context of the theme, every single person inside that building while it's transformed is also being possessed. The Shrimp Shack Attack set does this same transformation thing, but in a completely different way. The detail that most people miss is the giant shrimp on the front of the building. When you turn it to the side, it starts to reveal these light green pieces that look like teeth. And if you keep transforming the set, you even find an eyeball right below the diner sign. Now, obviously, this doesn't look very creepy. It's more about the lore than anything else, but not everything creepy is in sets that are supposed to be scary. The King's Castle set from 2006 is a very traditional, classic-looking castle set. It even has one of those OG raised base plates. But when you get to the lower section of the castle, there's a skeleton chained to what can only be described as a medieval torture device. There's a skull on the ground, weapons in a barrel, and a mean-looking minifigure with an axe in his hand. I'm not sure if LEGO is telling us that this minifigure is long dead or what, but this isn't even the only set with something like this. Captain Brickbeard's shipwreck hideout is built around this beef between the pirates and the Imperials. The pirates know the Imperials are coming for their loot, so there are booby traps set up all over the hideout. LEGO actually added comics in the instructions showing the two sides fighting each other, so by the time you get to page 38 and start building the captain's desk, you already know what's going on. But on the next page, LEGO tells you to stack 3 skeleton heads on top of each other and place them on that desk. Now, maybe I'm reaching here, but since Brickbeard has booby traps set up, it probably means means this isn't the first time soldiers tried to steal from him, and I'm thinking it might not have gone too well for the last ones that tried to rob him. But sometimes LEGO doesn't give us any context at all. The Discovery Station set is from the Divers sub-theme in LEGO Town, where divers use a base on the water and go on expeditions to find things in the ocean. It's a pretty fun idea overall, but on one of those missions, the divers find a skeleton sitting at the bottom of the ocean. There's no lore around it, no explanation anywhere in the set or the instructions, just a dead person on the ocean floor that your divers find by complete accident. And speaking of dead bodies just showing up out of nowhere, the Harry Potter Graveyard Duel set from 2005 has tombstones that physically open up, and when they do, there's a skeleton inside each one. Brickopedia calls one the main grave, which features flowers and a skeleton that jumps out of it. Now, I don't know if it actually jumps out of it like for a play feature, or if it's just a play on words, but some of the creepiest discoveries are in old themes. The Crocodile Cage set is from the Islanders sub-theme in Pirates, and on the surface, it's a pretty standard scene. A pirate is being held prisoner in a cage by an islander, but right outside the cage is a brick-built version of an islander's head mounted on a stick. Without the islander minifigure right next to it, it's honestly a little hard to notice, but Exoforce has something way crazier. If you don't know, Exoforce was an original LEGO theme from 2006 about people piloting mechs to defend their home against a robot army. The Shadow Crawler was one of the robot's mechs, and it came with a prison pod attached to it that had a skeleton inside. LEGO wanted builders to know that the Shadow Crawler was a serious threat, so they put a skeleton inside to show how deadly it really was. But some of the creepiest stuff in LEGO has nothing to do with lore. In Hagrid and Harry's motorcycle ride, Harry Potter's build doesn't really have a face. Because of how big Hagrid is, LEGO was able to give him a lot more details, so he isn't as creepy. But Harry is pretty uncanny valley. LEGO used this really weird triangle piece to represent his face, and all they printed on it were his glasses and his scar. Even though they're the most important details for him, there's no way anyone at LEGO looked at this and thought it wasn't creepy. But there's an even creepier face hiding in CMF Series 29. The trash monster from this series has a green slime head on top, and a lot of people who own it have never actually taken that head off. But if you do, underneath it is a rotting pumpkin head with a decomposing faceplate. And if that wasn't enough, there's a fly printed on a tile that comes with the minifig as an accessory. Brick Fanatics pointed out in their review that this wasn't functional or necessary at all. LEGO just decided to use a rotting pumpkin head to creep people out. But hidden faces aren't just a minifigure thing. In the Ship in a Bottle set from 2018, the display stand has two globes, one at each end. They look like regular decorative pieces, but inside each of them is a dark purple minifigure head, completely sealed inside. Once you build the globes, you won't even know they're there, which is why a lot of people don't talk about it online. Obviously, LEGO uses pieces for lots of different things, like the frogs in the bonsai set, but this one just feels weird. However, the Natural History Museum set might have the most try-hard detail in this video. Before you build the upper floors of the museum, there are bones and a sealed dig site built directly into the foundation. You build the museum on top of them and they're covered up forever. It's weird because usually LEGO would have some sort of explanation for this in the instructions, like the one they have for the pottery, where it connects to a completely different set. My guess is these bones were buried by the curator, otherwise known as Dr. Kilroy, because he wanted to leave something for an adventurer to find later down the line. But then there's the Dungeons and Dragons set, which committed to one specific bit harder than anything else. The set includes a gelatinous cube, which, if you don't know D&D, is a transparent cube-shaped monster that dissolves anything it touches. LEGO put one in this set, which is weird enough on its own. But inside the cube, they put a skull, a frying pan, and a gem, all held in place by skeleton arms. The cube isn't just floating there, it's actively dissolving things inside of it, one of which was a very unlucky minifigure. But nothing on this list is anywhere close to what LEGO did in the Jurassic Park T-Rex Rampage set. The set is famous on its own for being a goated recreation of the iconic gates, but inside the maintenance shed behind those gates, there's a dismembered arm in between a metal grate, and that arm belongs to Ray Arnold, who famously loses his arm to a raptor in the movie. LEGO even put a red 1x1 tile on the stump of his arm to represent blood, which they hardly ever do. The set also has Ray Arnold's full minifigure, which means his figure and his severed arm are in the same set, which is the only time in LEGO history that a character and their own detached body part have appeared together. The designer of the set, Mark Stafford, confirmed the whole thing in an interview and described it as slightly outside of LEGO's normal bounds, which might be the biggest understatement I've ever heard. And while we're talking about sets based on movies, the 2016 Death Star has a fully functional hidden platform underneath the floor. The Dianaga, which is the monster in the trash compactor from A New Hope, is hidden down there. There's a hole in the floor just big enough for its eye to push up above it, just like it did in the movie. And for a movie with not a lot of creepy stuff, LEGO somehow managed to take one of the only ones and recreate the creepiest thing about it. But it's nothing compared to what they did in the Hocus Pocus set. This set is based on the movie from the 90s, and there's a scene where two bullies get trapped inside cages by the Sanderson sisters. In the actual movie, both of them are alive when this happens. It's not a death scene, it's just part of the story. But in the LEGO set, when you build those cages, there are skeletons inside of them. So LEGO's version of this scene implies that the bullies have been in those cages long enough to completely decompose. Okay, maybe that's not exactly what they're saying, and they were just trying to be funny, but it still makes for a creepy detail. However, there's something insane in Bionicle that a lot of people completely forgot about. Prydak is one of the Baraki warriors, and LEGO's official description for him says he's the deadliest and most ruthless of the Baraki warlords, who rules through fear. The Bionicle theme was always built around war, conflict, and battles, but when LEGO made the figures, that violence was usually shown through weapons and fake fighting. But Prydak broke that pattern. Someone on Reddit noticed that his weapons look like they're blood-stained. Like I said, even though the lore for Bionicle is pretty dark, LEGO usually sticks to their family-friendly code, but Prydak and Ray Arnold's arm are the complete opposite. But the creepiest discovery in this video might be this last one, and it's not from a horror theme, a licensed one, or even a villain set. Set 3314 is technically a soccer set from LEGO Town called Police Unit. It comes with a transport vehicle for officers and a second truck that has a cage on the back specifically for prisoners. It has 4 minifigures total, and one of them is just named Hooligan. In the promo picture, the police are chasing this hooligan around, and look like they want to throw him in the back of that truck. Obviously, nothing about this is creepy, but if you think about it, this means that the police of LEGO Town are fully equipped to deal with riots and have a way to control crowds. Something like that can get pretty dark pretty quick, so honestly, I'm surprised LEGO even hinted at it with this set. Rivendell set from LEGO Lord of the Rings. This set just dropped a few years back, and even though LEGO should be able to make a set without pissing anyone off, they unfortunately cannot. The most annoying part about it is right there, front and center, the roof. Those diamond-shaped pieces aren't part of some special roof piece made for this set. They're 1x1 tiles, which means you have to place every single one yourself. This is nothing new though. There are loads of sets where LEGO tells us to place a ton of pieces, including some you probably haven't heard of, which I'll get to later. But these tiles have their own special problem. As we can see, not only are these pieces turned to the side, but they're also spaced out, so lining them up would genuinely take forever. But don't worry, LEGO knew we would mess this up and showed the tiles turned in all sorts of directions in the instructions. And to fix it, they told us to shove a 2x14 plate in between the pieces to line them up easier. Not gonna lie, this is actually a pretty good method. It's just crazy that LEGO put it in the instructions. But something they've done that's way crazier is making sets with illegal building techniques in them. I'm not talking about the vintage ones from before these techniques were illegal. I mean real, modern-day sets that completely break the rules. And what's even worse is that there are enough of them that Brickset made an entire web page about it. The page has 5 sets listed, 2 of which are the Saturn V, which got re-released with the same illegal technique, but they all use the method of wedging plates or tiles between studs on another brick or plate. The most recent set that broke the rules was the Justifier from LEGO Star Wars. But what if I told you this webpage isn't up to date, and that there's a new set that broke the rules again with a different technique? You might think I'm lying, but the Ford Model T does just that. The technique it used involved headlight bricks, which are notorious for being used in illegal building techniques. The person who found it was none other than the GOAT Tiago. He broke down the problem very well and showed us just how bad this technique really is for your bricks. He even got the set early and did his review before it came out, but from what I can tell, LEGO didn't change anything. The technique is used on step 167. I know, guys, stay with me, lock in here. Tiago showed it in his video, and when you compare it to the online version, the steps look identical. LEGO changes online instructions whenever they get an update, so clearly the problem is still here. But this topic is a little heavy, so let's get back to the weird stuff. In my video about rage bait instructions, I talked about how LEGO told us to straight up pour studs into the top of the ship in a bottle set. But what I didn't know was that this wasn't the only time they've done this. It's also in the bonsai tree set, but it's a little different. In this one, every piece you're supposed to pour is in bag 3, but for some reason, they're all in 4 little bags inside the big bag. So LEGO tells us to take these 4 bags out, open them, pour them back into bag 3, then pour them into the base of the set. Voila, you now have 200 loose 1x1 tiles in your bonsai tree, and all you had to do was open 5 bags. This is obviously very annoying, but it's nowhere near as annoying as something you do in the Endurance set. This set is based on a real ship that sailed the seas of Antarctica from 1914 to 1917. LEGO did a phenomenal job recreating it, but to make the accuracy this good, they had to use real cloth for the sails, which meant the builder had to do one of the most frustrating things ever. You start building the nose of the ship on page 390, and if you hadn't noticed yet, LEGO is telling you to thread a string in between a piece and lock it in place. It gets worse though, because 3 pages later, a sail is attached to the string and magically floating in mid-air. The string isn't attached anywhere on the other side yet, because that comes on the next page, where you have to route it through 5 different points on the masts. You even have to do this again with another string a few pages later, but luckily the rest of the sails get mounted with connection points, so you don't have to route all 10 through string. However, according to New Elementary, these strings actually put a lot of pressure on the build and pull the masts forward, which is definitely not good. But even worse is that this isn't the only time LEGO's messed up sails. They dropped the Pirates of Barracuda Bay set in 2020, which has cloth sails just like the Endurance, but they have a completely different problem. In a review from Bricks for Bricks, the builder says they saw someone say that you can use an iron to flatten out the sails when you want to attach them to the ship, which really made me scratch my head. But then I thought about it. This set can be built in 2 different ways, and the first way it's built in the instructions is with the sails furled. LEGO literally tells you to roll them up on page 160, but when you build the second version, the sails are extended, and after reading that review, I realized they aren't as flat as they look in the instructions. And there are actually 2 main reasons for this. The first one is because the sails aren't packaged flat in their bags, so there was never any hope of them being flat to begin with. But the second reason is what Brothers Brick said in their review. After being rolled for only a day or 2, the sails were pretty wrinkled. This seems like something LEGO would address in the instructions, but they didn't. So the weird instruction step here is that there wasn't one. You were just supposed to fix this sale problem on your own. But instructions get even weirder with the addition of modern day technology. LEGO made a system called Control Plus in 2019 as a replacement for the beloved power function system, and people were really not happy about it. The biggest reason was because instead of remote controls, Control Plus uses an app and Bluetooth, which is way less fun than an analog remote control. Regardless, LEGO released it anyway, and when the Liber Excavator, the first set to use Control Plus, came out, the instructions were literally telling people to stop and whip out their phones mid-build. I scrolled through all 740 pages of the instructions online and found 4 separate times where LEGO did this. You can find them at steps 234, 485, 692, and right after step 1000. But if you notice, they're not completely identical. They're all here to show you which part of the set is being connected to the app. I honestly don't even understand why LEGO was showing this, especially since you don't actually connect anything to the app until you're done building. But as weird and irritating as it is to see a phone in LEGO instructions, it's even worse to see the same steps over and over and over. In the Rage Bait video, I mentioned a few sets with this problem, but one that I absolutely have to talk about is the Taj Mahal. From the outside, it doesn't even look like it'd be that bad until you look at the base. It's pretty much identical all the way around, and considering this set has almost 6,000 pieces, it means you're in for a pretty rough build. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw in a review from Bricks for Bricks. They said that bags 5, 6, 7, and 8 were all the same, and when I checked the instructions, they definitely weren't lying. This is when I realized that it's not just the base that's brutal, it's the entire set. I mean, just look at this picture. But if you thought the Taj Mahal, Captain America's shield, or any other set was repetitive, it's because you haven't met the LEGO Eiffel Tower, which not only has one of the highest piece counts of any LEGO set ever, but is also the second most repetitive set ever, behind the world map, of course. Just by looking at it, you can tell this thing is gonna be an absolute nightmare, but it's the reviews for it that made me realize just how bad it really is. Not only is most of the set the same pieces, but according to Adam White from Brick Fans, there was a step that was required to be done 140 times, which made his heart sink. Unfortunately, Adam didn't show this step in his review, and not gonna lie, there's no way I'm scrolling through all this, so y'all are just gonna have to believe Adam. But of course, he wasn't the only reviewer with a problem like this. At the end of Rob Payton's review on Brick Fanatics, he said that all the repeated steps makes you wonder if it'll take 2 years to complete the build, and even gave us numbers so we knew what he was talking about. Add that to this post on Reddit with 3.4k upvotes, and I think it's pretty obvious that this set is unbelievably infamous. But repetitive LEGO isn't always bad. Sometimes it's weird in the funniest way possible. Ever since LEGO made the round 1x1 with horizontal swirl piece, which is obviously what everyone calls it, they've had a weird obsession with poop, and sometimes they don't even use this piece to represent it. The best example of this is obviously the flushing toilet in the City Garden set from Ninjago, but I actually want to show you a more underrated one in the Paranormal Intercept bus set from the Hidden Side theme. When you see how LEGO advertised the set, it looks like this porta potty isn't anything special, but this is the Hidden Side theme, and this porta potty can transform into a haunted porta potty and shoot poop discs out of the door. The instruction step that shows this is possible is absolutely hilarious, but it almost makes too much sense for it to be the weirdest one. An even weirder poop moment is in the Vintage Taxi set, which was actually a gift with purchase set. This is the only picture of it on LEGO's website besides the pictures of the box, and if you had to guess where the poop would be, where would you say it is? Hold on to that guess and take a look at page 8 of the instructions. For some reason, the designer decided the trash can needed a random piece of poop inside of it. It adds absolutely nothing to the set besides comedy, but there's still one more poop moment I want to point out. It's one we all know, the piece of poop under Dwight's desk in the Office set. This is a really famous Easter egg, but have any of you seen what it looks like before the desk is actually there? You put it down in step 22, and it's literally just sitting there in the middle of the floor. And Lego even pointed an arrow at it with another picture of the poop so you don't miss your mark. As funny as this is, I want to tell you about those times where Lego made us place way too many pieces that I mentioned earlier in the video. And the best place to start is the Dagobah Jedi training diorama from Lego Star Wars. When you see this set from above, it's pretty obvious what part of the set has too many of the same piece. But the whole thing only has 1,000 pieces, so it can't be that bad, right? Well, unfortunately, over 20% of those pieces are for the swamp, and the worst of it are on steps 42 and 43. Step 42 has you place 39 plates, which isn't too bad, but then you get to step 43 and you wonder why you even bought the set. 177 tiles is way too many to place all at once, but the thing about Lego is that it could always be worse. You see, even though there are a lot of them, these 216 pieces are pretty easy to place, but some Lego sets make you build a chain. And when that happens, you realize just how bad it can really be. A perfect example is in the Haunted House set from the Icons theme. The house has an elevator, so of course you have to build the chain that moves it up and down. This happens at step 440, where you have to use 149 chain pieces. Clearly, this is less than the tiles and plates in the Dagobah set, but putting these chain links together is a lot more difficult than you might realize. They connect with two really small notches, and since the chain needs to be sturdy, the links aren't very flexible, which is what makes them so difficult to put together. But there's something even worse than this in the Loop Coaster set, because the chain for this one is made with two different types of links, and step 452 is the worst of it. The main part of the chain uses 222 regular links, but to connect it to the set, you have to build another one with 33 different chain links. The wider links are what actually holds the coaster in place, and that's the worst part about Lego chains. They're always 100% needed. But the worst part about Lego instructions in general is that some sets don't even come with paper copies. The first set that did this was the Creative Toolbox set from 2017, but according to reviews online, most of, if not every set in Lego Mario doesn't come with paper instructions either. Instead, Lego pushes people to use the PDFs online. They probably did this to see how the public would react, but it didn't end up getting that much attention. The topic as a whole wasn't really talked about until 2024, when Lego made a survey for insiders asking them how they felt about paper instructions. After it was done, it was obvious that people wanted them to stay. So even though there are some sets out there without them, paper instructions aren't going anywhere. Peelybone wasn't ever supposed to be a real set. Sometimes Lego designers build things just for fun, or as personal gifts for other employees. And that's exactly what happened here. Someone built Peelybone as a gift for a coworker, but then Epic Games saw it and they wanted it to be an actual product. So now it's a real set that you can buy, all because someone wanted to give their coworker a funny gift. But the origin story isn't even the most interesting thing about Peelybone, because there's something more interesting hiding inside him. Partway through the build, before you close up the torso, you make a small brick-built heart inside his chest, and then you brick up the rest of him and it's completely gone. You can never see it again without taking the whole thing apart. Lego's done stuff like this before, like the turtle's brain in Lego Minecraft, but seeing it on a Fortnite skin is pretty weird. And speaking of things you'd never notice on Peelybone, his heel uses a telephone receiver as part of the build, which sounds like a weird detail to bring up, but the reason it matters is that before this set came out, that specific piece was only ever in one other set, the Stranger Things Upside Down set from 2019. Lego used one of the rarest parts in their catalog for this guy's foot, and barely anyone even noticed. But it's not just the sets. There's something about how the Fortnite theme itself was made that's pretty interesting. Designers John Cuppage and Eric Jensen had access to beta versions of the Lego Fortnite game while they were designing the physical sets. So they could actually check the in-game assets and make sure the colors and proportions matched up perfectly. And apparently they got really lucky with the Loot Llama. because the colors it needed already existed. They didn't have to make anything new, which is pretty lucky for something like the Loot Llama. The colors are all over the place. But even with that luck, the llama ended up using a part that hadn't shown up in a Lego set in over a decade. There's a 1x2 to 2x2 downward bracket in medium lavender on the llama's head, and the last time that part showed up in that color was in the Butterfly Beauty Shop set from 2012 in the Lego Friends theme. Lego clearly put a lot of effort into this set, but they actually got something wrong. The llama comes with a bunch of items that match what you'd actually find in one in Fortnite, except for one. There's a backpack in there. Obviously, there are only a few items in Fortnite that you can wear on your back, but none of them show up in a llama, so this thing is very out of place. But the best detail with the llama by far is actually a play feature. Obviously, we all know what happens when you find a llama in-game, but did you know you can recreate it with the set? If you put all the items in through the top, you can open one of the doors on the side and the loot will spawn in, just like it does in-game. Obviously, the llama doesn't disappear, but this is a really cool play feature that Lego barely even advertised. However, the Durr Burger set has something really cool going on with the eyes. They're cross-eyed, which is accurate to the real one, but the way Lego made this happen is kind of genius. Inside the build, there are hidden bar plate connections that hold the eyeballs at outward angles, so the googly, lazy-eyed look is actually engineered from the inside. You can't see how it works from the outside, and it's such a small detail that you probably didn't even think about it. But now, I want to talk about the Battle Bus set, because there are definitely some cool small details in here. The first one is that the giant balloon sections are made with pieces from the Lego Trolls theme, which hasn't been around since 2020. Lego had to take a lot of pieces from retired themes to make sure Fortnite was accurate. But Trolls is one I did not expect to hear. But the bigger thing about the Battle Bus set are the 9 minifigures that come with it. But it's because not a single one of them comes with a gun. It's all regular loot. Slurp juice, grapplers, pickaxes, slap juice, not a single gun anywhere. And this isn't an accident. Fortnite is literally a game about shooting people, but Lego decided that the Fortnite theme shouldn't have any weapons, even though other kids' themes definitely do. It goes a step further though, because it carries over into Lego Fortnite Odyssey. The actual game doesn't have guns either. Usually this would make sense, but we all know Fortnite is a kids game, and the kids buying the sets definitely know what guns are. Regardless, most people who have this set just display the Drift minifigure with his mask and hood, which looks great. But the minifig also comes with a separate hair piece, so you can take the whole mask setup off and display him with hair instead. It's just like the edit styles in the game. But out of all 9 minifigures in this set, Meowscles is the only one who got printing on the arms, and this isn't just for show. The Lynx tattoo on his right arm is a reference to a completely separate Fortnite skin. Obviously, he has this tattoo in-game, but printing stuff on the arms ups the price by a lot, so I'm surprised Lego did it just to give him a small tattoo. But here's the thing about Meowscles. The Battle Bus set is built so all 9 of the minifigures can sit inside, but Meowscles is the only one who can't actually do that. His tailpiece is so big that he just doesn't fit, so he has to stand the whole time. But the coolest minifigure in this set is the Cuddle Team leader, because the mask is actually removable. This isn't even possible in game yet, even though Epic made it a thing for a bunch of other team leaders. But Lego actually hid a reference to OG Fortnite in this minifigure. When you take off the mask, you find what looks like Ramirez's head underneath. But Ramirez isn't Cuddle Team leader's canonical identity. That's Sid. The reason Ramirez is under there is actually a reference to the skin's origin in the game. Before we found out Cuddle Team leader was Sid, the skin used Ramirez's head underneath instead. So the detail is technically wrong if you're going by canon, but it's also a deep cut reference to OG Fortnite at the same time. But here's the part most people don't know. The reason why LEGO has such a close relationship with Fortnite is because LEGO's parent company, Kirkby, invested $1 billion into Epic Games in April of 2022 as part of a deal to build kid-friendly digital spaces. That investment gave Kirkby a 3% ownership stake in Epic, which is huge in the corporate world. And because of this relationship, allegedly, the Fortnite sets don't have the usual 20% markup that licensed themes usually get. So the sets not being more expensive is because LEGO literally owns a small piece of Epic Games. But it'd be weird if these sets didn't connect to the actual video game. So every LEGO Fortnite set has a QR code on the instruction booklet that unlocks a skin in-game. The 2025 sets all give you different ones. The Klombo set unlocks Island Adventure Peely, the Durr Burger restaurant unlocks Beef Boss, and the Mecha Team Leader unlocks both the Mecha Team Leader and Mecha Team Shadow outfits. This is a really good incentive, but LEGO also needed people to actually want to play their game. It was already a huge deal that LEGO and Fortnite were collabing, but the biggest reason people went crazy for it were the minifigure skins. With the Icon series, LEGO and Fortnite had a crazy opportunity to double down on something that was already working well, but they triple downed. Because the first Icon skin to get a minifigure in-game was Mr. Beast. They knew exactly what they were doing when they did this, but they still wanted the game to get even more attention. So for the launch, LEGO built 4 12-foot tall loot llamas out of 234,623 bricks. They weighed over 2,200 pounds and took over 850 hours to build. They dropped them off in places like New York, London, Tokyo, and Sydney all at the same time to get some hype going for the game. This is a pretty bold move, but it had already worked in the past. For the launch of OG Season 5, Fortnite dropped Durr Burgers all over the world, and it got them more publicity than they ever would have thought. Going back to the llamas though, alongside the giant ones, LEGO also made limited edition miniature llamas for the launch. Only 625 of them were made, and they were all numbered and sent to influencers and media companies. But you might be wondering why you've never seen it before. Well, that's because literally all of them were sent to people. Not a single one was sold in stores. So unless you were TikTok famous, there was literally no way for you to get one of these things. But this wouldn't be a LEGO Fortnite collab without references to Star Wars. In the LEGO Fortnite Odyssey game, there's a Star Wars update from 2024 where a random encounter makes a Star Destroyer crash into your island. It's not a cutscene or an event, it literally just happens in front of you, and the damage from the crash even stays there after it happens. And since Star Wars is part of LEGO Fortnite, the game also has Star Wars references hidden in the most random place, the animal naming system. When you find chickens, one of the names you can assign is Cluck Skywalker. That's not all though. Cows can be named Lando Calrissian for Lando, and sheep can be named Sheepio for 3PO. These are in the farm management section, which most people probably don't even read, so these names were a little hard to find. But getting back to real-life LEGO, inside the Mecha Team Leader set's cockpit, there are stickers showing screens that show the Season 9 Final Showdown battle, and the Devourer, the monster from that event, is on those screens as a brick-built LEGO version, not its regular in-game version. Whether this is a hint to a Devourer set or just a cool detail, I genuinely don't know. But did you know that the entire collab between LEGO and Fortnite actually got leaked? In September of 2023, Epic Games announced that they were laying some people off, and in the press release, they showed some upcoming games with code words, so no one could figure out what the games were. But one of those code words was Juno, which leakers had already connected to the LEGO Fortnite collab. So Epic accidentally confirmed the whole thing because they wanted to fire some people. Between this and the Pokemon League, they've really got to figure it out. But now, let me tell you a sick piece of lore about Klombo. LEGO didn't just have to make one version, they had to make two. One for the game and one in real life for the set. And because of the method they used, the two ended up looking almost identical. For
Or
the
just
digital
drop one
version,
from
they
inside of your
hired a guy
inventory.
named Joss, who's a creature designer at Epic Games. But he's also the guy who won the LEGO Masters in 2022 in Australia. So they were getting an absolute GOAT for the job. The real-life version was designed by Matthias Julin, who matched Joss's version as closely as he possibly could. And he did a really good job, because people literally call this set a brick-for-brick replica of the digital in-game version. But the video game details don't end here. There's a game called LEGO Fortnite Brick Life, and somewhere in the game, you can find a vault with a bunch of different Fortnite items in it. There's balloons, a mythic goldfish, a chug jug, and a grappler. But I can't end the video without showing you an Easter egg in the Klombo set. Just like with the Peely Bone set, there's a little heart hidden on the inside. It's literally in the base of the entire set, so unless you built it yourself or watched a review, there's pretty much no way you'd know it was there. Now, Damis was an Austrian company, and they started making interlocking plastic bricks the same year LEGO launched theirs, 1949. And to be fair to them, LEGO had only just figured out the concept themselves, so nobody really owned the idea yet. What makes Damis interesting isn't that they were successful, it's that they proved the format was worth copying almost immediately. The brand eventually faded away, and today it mostly survives through collectors and vintage brick exhibits. But the fact that it exists at all tells you something about how fast competitors were moving. But by 1955, the interlocking brick had spread all the way into East Germany. Peba was made by a guy named Paul Bernhardt, and it followed the same basic idea: studded plastic bricks that connected and stacked. The thing that makes Peba a little different is where it was made. East Germany in 1955 was behind the Iron Curtain, which means the concept had crossed political boundaries within 6 years of LEGO introducing it. Peba isn't famous, and it didn't last, but it shows up in articles about East German toys, and it's a pretty good example of how fast the interlocking brick idea was moving around the world, whether LEGO liked it or not. 1 year later, also in East Germany, there was Plastek and Formo, both made by a very German company that I can't pronounce. These followed the same basic format as LEGO, but with their own variations on the bottom of the brick. At this point, just 7 years after LEGO launched, you already had multiple companies in East Germany alone making their own versions of the same toy. None of them lasted, but looking at Damis, Peba, Plastek, and Formo basically proves that by the mid-1950s, copying LEGO wasn't a controversial move. It was just something toy companies did. And by 1958, the interlocking brick finally reached America. Deluxe Game Corp was selling LEGO-style bricks in the US under at least 3 different names: Lino Method, Diplom, and Pooey, which is already a strange way to run a business, but whatever, it worked for a little bit. The line didn't last very long, but it's proof that American companies were watching what LEGO was doing and started moving in almost a decade before LEGO themselves officially entered the US market. But 2 years later, the Netherlands got Montini, and Montini is one of those brands that's interesting precisely because it didn't become anything huge. It used softer plastics than LEGO, but it was clearly going after the same buyer. It shows up in collector references today, and that's about it. But 1962 is where it starts to get interesting, because now we start seeing companies that haven't completely faded away. Kawada's Dia Block entered the Japanese market in 1962, and unlike pretty much everything before it, Kawada actually made something with a real identity. The bricks had their own underside design, and the company stuck around long enough to become a legitimate competitor in Japan. Then, much later, the same company created Nano Block, the smaller scale brick system that's still sold all over the world today. That's pretty much the best outcome any company on this list could have hoped for. But 1966 was a pretty busy year. France got Brick Juef, which was made by Juef, a company that was already well known for toy trains. So this wasn't some unknown startup jumping into bricks. By 1966, LEGO had gotten popular enough that real, known toy companies were looking at their bricks as an industry to enter instead of just a one-off toy. Brick Juef didn't last, and today only collectors really care about it. But the fact that Juef made bricks at all says something about where LEGO stood in the industry by the mid-60s. Also in 1966, Rosti launched in Latin America, and this one has a way more interesting story than most. The bricks weren't identical to Legos, and Rosti actually had a stronger clutch in some versions, which got them some real recognition over time. Real enough that when the brand eventually died, it was able to come back. A resurrection is genuinely unheard of for a 1960s clone brand. Most of them just die and stay dead, but Rosti didn't, and that puts it in a category of its own. But 1968 is the year that surprises people the most, because this is when Nintendo, yes, the Nintendo, launched the N and B brick, but it only lasted until 1972. Nintendo didn't copy LEGO's format exactly. They actually tried to differentiate it with more round elements than LEGO was using at the time. This eventually ended up in a legal fight over the brick design, so Nintendo lost interest and quit in 1972. But a few years later, they dropped their first console. So technically, if it wasn't for LEGO, the Nintendo we know now would have never existed, which is pretty crazy. But starting in 1969, new clone companies started popping up everywhere. Poly Hobby was a German brand that used its own weird design. They're long gone now, and there's pretty much no information on them, but they copied LEGO, so they made the cut. In 1971, Japan had its own version of this, with ATC bricks from the Asahi Toy Company. This puts it in the same wave as Diablock and N&B from Nintendo, which means by the early 70s, Japan had at least 3 separate companies all making LEGO-style bricks at the same time. ATC was the least successful of the 3. You'll pretty much only find catalogs of it nowadays. Obviously, most of these early clone brands just copied the format and didn't do much else with it. However, there was a brand in Spain named Tente that finally tried to do something different. Tente leaned hard into vehicles, ships, and technical models, and built a real identity in that niche. It became one of the most well-known alternatives to LEGO, and people who grew up with it are genuinely nostalgic for it the same way LEGO fans are about classic sets. The original XN line eventually died, but the Tente name has come back in different forms. Not bad for a Spanish company that started as a LEGO-inspired brand in 1972. But then we have Lock Blocks from 1976, which is basically Diablock with an American passport. Kawada, the same company behind Diablock, had their bricks sold in the US under the Lock Blocks name by a company called Entex. This is important because it shows something that gets more common as time goes on. Companies taking a brick system that's already working in one country and finding a partner to sell it somewhere else under a different name. Lockblocks is discontinued now, but Tyco is where things really start to heat up. LEGO's core brick patents expired in the early 1980s, and Tyco Superblocks was one of the first major companies to take full advantage of it. Tyco was a real American toy brand selling LEGO-compatible bricks in direct competition with LEGO at mainstream stores. But here's the thing. They were cheaper. This eventually caused serious legal fights over what parts of the brick system LEGO could still protect after the patents were gone, since, Tyco was winning. These court cases shaped the rules that every clone brand since then has had to follow. Tyco eventually changed hands and moved away from construction toys, but its impact on the legal end for LEGO competitors lasted a lot longer than the product did. Tyco was the first to copy LEGO at scale, but Mega Bloks did it better. Mega launched in 1991 with a very smart move. They started with jumbo preschool bricks and then expanded into standard construction sets, which eventually got them the #2 name in building toys globally. It got big enough to be acquired by Mattel. It's still active today and sells everywhere. And another big hitter from the 90s is Kobe. Kobe started in Poland in the late 1980s and started making construction blocks in 1992. The early stuff followed the LEGO-compatible format, but over time, Kobe built something more specific: military vehicles and licensed cars, and that turned out to be a genius move. As you'll see later in the video, this basically became the blueprint for every clone company because of how well it worked for Kobe. And in 1994, the one country who's rinsed and repeated it the most entered the market: China. This is when a brand called Enlighten first showed up, and it's one of the longest running Chinese brick brands ever made. It started in the same general wave of Chinese Lego-inspired companies, but over time, it tried to clean up its image and market itself as an original brand instead of a clone, so it changed its name to Q-Man. Whether that worked depends on who you ask, but the company is still around, and the rebrand from Enlighten to Q-Man was clearly a real attempt to change their reputation. But then we have Oxford from South Korea, which is sometimes just called Korean Lego, which is both a compliment and a legal problem. The company has been in a lot of legal fights with Lego, but it also built a real following with lower prices, military themes, and promotional sets that Lego wasn't doing. Oxford also ended up making Hasbro's Creo line that I'll talk about later, which means it was competing with Lego with two different brands. But in 1997, Best Lock launched to specifically compete with Lego in English-speaking countries, and it's had a big presence ever since. Like every other successful clone brand, it's been in legal fights with Lego a million times, but it's also covered a huge range of themes, including military and licensed sets, so it's still around today. It's not as big as Mega, and it's not as infamous as Lepin, but Best Lock has been quietly existing as a Lego clone for almost 30 years, which puts it in a pretty small group of companies that have actually lasted. And Ligao is in the same boat. This one is tied to Wang Toys and is part of the late 1990s wave of Chinese companies that came in after the core Lego formats had been legally opened up. One of the reasons they've been able to last so long is because there isn't a lot of company history. It's more of a name than anything else. Because of this, it stayed pretty small, which is probably another reason why Lego hasn't ended them yet. But in 2003, one of the most interesting clones ever popped up, and it's because it was made by Hasbro. In 2003, they released Built to Rule, which took G.I. Joe, Tonka, and Transformers and turned them into buildable sets using interlocking bricks. Obviously, Hasbro was one of the biggest toy companies ever back then, so to see them jump into the brick industry was pretty serious. But it didn't mean anything, because the line only lasted for 2 years. But for 2004, we moved back to China with Slubon, one of the most popular Chinese Lego-compatible brands that built their name off of, you guessed it, military and city sets. Pretty much all of the Chinese brands do the same thing, and the funny part is that it actually works. All you had to do back in the day was make military stuff that looked like Lego, and you were golden. But Kata is actually a good example of a Chinese brand that moved past copying and built something people actually respect. The bricks are Lego compatible, but Kata built their name with engineering models and enthusiast products, the kind of stuff that competes with Technic instead of just a cheaper version of something Lego's already made. Another big Chinese brand is Bonbao, which came around in 2010 and immediately got into legal fights with Lego over packaging and figure similarities, which is basically a rite of passage for these Chinese brick companies. But what's worth noting about Bonbao is that it was part of a shift where Chinese brands were trying to become actual consumer brands instead of just anonymous Lego clones. They were putting real marketing behind their products and trying to build a name for themselves. But, they still used Lego to do it. However, in 2011, Hasbro came back for round 2 with a brand called Creo. Creo launched with Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Star Trek, and it was manufactured by Oxford, the Korean company from earlier in this video. The figures were called Creons, and they were clearly designed to give people an alternative to minifigures without being identical to them. Creo actually ran for 6 years, which is a lot better than the first time, but the concept was pretty much the same, and Hasbro actually completely shut down in 2017, so I don't think they'll be back for round 3. This brings us to 2016, where we have the most infamous clone in today's market, Lepin. They didn't just make Lego-compatible bricks, they copied specific Lego sets almost exactly, including sets with licensed intellectual property, and sold them for a fraction of the price. By 2016, they were big enough that Lego started taking legal action, and it got so serious that people literally went to prison. But somehow, they're still around, and they're the best example of what happens when you copy instead of come up with something yourself. You can take that however you want. But at the end of the timeline, there's Enco, a brand made by Kmart that's only sold in Australia, selling its own Lego-style sets under the name Construction Blocks. Kmart's been out of business in the US for a while now, and to be honest, I didn't even know they were still running in other countries. So to see them putting money into interlocking bricks is pretty weird, and it's actually the most telling thing in this video. When a mass market superstore makes their own Lego compatible product and sells it in their stores, the method is officially patched. I guess that's where 75 years of copying gets you. Now, you might look at it and see a fun little mini build, but if you're a fan of the classic space theme, you would have noticed something immediately. The vehicle has a print that says LL929, which makes it a direct reference to the LL928 Galaxy Explorer from 1979. Pretty much every set from Classic Space had its set number printed somewhere on it. So not only is it a reference to the Galaxy Explorer, but it's accurate to Classic Space as a whole. But the side vehicle isn't the only Classic Space reference hiding in the Lego movie sets, because the Benny Space Squad polybag managed to reference not one, but two separate sets from 1979 in one singular build. The 885 Space Scooter and the 886 Space Buggy were both sets from the very first wave of Lego Space. So to see them again all those years later probably made parents really happy. And while we're talking about Benny, the Robo pilot figure that comes with Benny's spaceship has a detail that most people wouldn't think twice about. His visor is red, but it's not just any red. It's specifically the color used by space police. This sub-theme from the late 80s first introduced cops and villains into the classic space universe. It's niche enough that even people who grew up with Lego back then might not really remember it when they first opened the box. Now, stepping away from Benny for a second, Emmett's car in the double-decker couch set has a printed radio tile on the dashboard. This is obviously here so he can listen to Everything is Awesome while he drives around. People like this detail so much that it's one of the only reasons they even buy the set, so I couldn't leave it out. But speaking of Emmett, his dream house from the Lego Movie 2 has a design that you wouldn't even realize is a reference. The house looks pretty chunky compared to modern day Lego houses, and it's made almost entirely with primary colors. But if you grew up with Lego in the 70s, this would feel really familiar. The house uses the design language of classic Lego townhouses from back then. This is the exact style that defined what a Lego home looked like for an entire generation. So when Emmett finally builds the house he's always wanted in the movie, it ends up looking like a set from 50 years ago. Switching gears though, the Rex Celsior set is already a lot to take in just on the outside. But if you look at the inside, there are some micro builds that reference other sets from the same era. Lego does this a lot in Ninjago and modular buildings, so it's cool to see that people from the Lego movie universe also build Lego sets. But now, let's get into the Apocalypseburg set, because this one might have more hidden details than anything else in the Lego movie themes. And the first one I want to talk about involves a wanted poster. You'll find one with a face on it, and that face belongs to Justin Ramsden, one of the actual Lego designers who worked on the set. Usually when designers put signatures in their sets, it's something really subtle. Like when Jan Woźnita added Polish flags to the Tales of the Space Age set. But Justin isn't the only thing hiding in the walls of Apocalypseburg, because if you look at the buildings themselves, one of them has a window AC unit that uses a piece clearly based on the Batmobile. Batman is already all over this set, but someone decided that the most recognizable symbol of Gotham City should be repurposed as a wall-mounted AC unit in the ruins of a city. The comparison between the Batmobile and the air conditioner is immediately obvious once you know to look for it, and it's a really funny way of world building by Lego. There's also a punching bag in Apocalypseburg that's decorated with a Duplo alien face, and the important thing here is that it's not a sticker. Obviously, Duplo doesn't use the same pieces as regular Lego, but somehow the designers of this set were able to fully recreate something from Duplo using regular Lego pieces. This was probably insanely difficult, and it just goes to show how dedicated the designers were when they made this set. But the most recognizable landmark in all of Apocalypseburg is probably the half-buried Statue of Liberty, and it's actually referencing the first Planet of the Apes movie from 1968. It's a direct reference to one of the most famous twist endings in film history. Charlton Heston is on the beach, the statue is buried in sand, civilization is gone. In that movie, the statue being buried was the most obvious way to show that civilization was really done for. So LEGO did the same thing in this set. But right next to all of the rubble is a printed poster that's somehow two separate jokes in one. It takes the Planet of the Apes scenery and combines it with Where Are My Pants?, Emmett's favorite TV show of all time. The full joke only really lands if you've seen both movies, so this poster was only made for someone with a very specific set of memories in their head, or else they just wouldn't get it. In a different part of Apocalypseburg, though, there's this coffee shop called Coffee Unchained, which is a reference to Django Unchained. Shocker, I know. But it's also a direct continuation of the coffee gag from the first movie, where a simple cup of overpriced coffee represented everything Emmett aspired to be. It was his one small luxury in a very mundane, ordinary life. So the fact that even after the world ended, someone kept the coffee shop running and gave it a pun for a name is pretty funny. Now, Wildstyle side of Apocalypseburg also has a few hidden details. So let's start with her mailbox. It has a Green Lantern power ring inside, with no real explanation whatsoever. LEGO gives you zero context for why it's there or who it belongs to. Obviously, DC is very present in this set, and Green Lantern himself is in the LEGO movie, but his ring being here makes no sense. However, there's a really emotionally loaded detail in Wildstyle's section that's actually inside her bed. As we all know, she broke up with Batman at the end of the first movie to be with Emmett. But in the second movie, we find out that she held on to some stuff from her relationship with Batman, and LEGO decided to include them in this set. Under her bed, you can find a drawing of Batman and a letter from him that's addressed to her using her real name, Lucy. I'm not really sure what this implies, but I just hope the end of the first movie wasn't for nothing. And speaking of the first movie, one of the play features built into Apocalypseburg is a spring-loaded chair launching mechanism that's engineered specifically to recreate the interrogation scene from the first movie. You know the one. It's unbelievably popular, because while Bad Cop is interrogating Emmett, he's throwing chairs around to try and scare him into giving him answers. It's one of the best play features in this set, but I think this next reference is really gonna surprise you. Somewhere in Apocalypseburg, there's a train car that might be referencing Spider-Man. Now, it's a complete shot in the dark, but in Brickset's review, they pointed out how the train car looks similar to the one from the Spider-Man's train rescue set. That set is obviously based on the scene where Spider-Man stops a runaway train, and if this reference is true, that means Apocalypseburg was referencing the same thing. Like I said, it's definitely a long shot, but moving on from that, there's also something in this set for fans of LEGO Model Team, a theme from the late 80s and early 90s that had big, highly detailed vehicles. Model Team isn't as iconic as Classic Space or Pirates. It's sort of in the middle ground where some fans remember it and everyone else has never heard of it. So finding a reference to it tucked into a 2019 LEGO movie set makes you think the designer was leaving a message for a very small number of people and knew no one else would bat an eye. But now, I want to switch gears and look at a minifigure for a change, and the one I want to focus on in particular is Abraham Lincoln, because he has a few very interesting details about him. The first one has to do with his accessory. It's just a regular tile piece, but LEGO printed the famous opening to the Gettysburg Address on it, which was of course given by Abraham Lincoln. It's one of many important pieces of history surrounding Abe, but the other cool detail about him is in one of his pieces. As you can see, his beard is a molded piece, unlike a lot of other minifigures who just get their beards printed right onto their faceplate. But that's not the cool part. His beard is actually attached to his giant hat. They're both one giant piece. Jay's Brick Blog pointed out how he can't tell if this is a good thing or not, since no matter what minifig you put this piece on, they'll just end up looking like Abraham Lincoln. But I don't know, I think that might be kind of funny. Anyways, keeping the minifigure train going, in the LEGO Movie 2 CMF series, the Scarecrow comes with a printed diploma tile. It specifically references his THD, or his Doctor of Thinkology, which is the degree the wizard awards him with at the end of The Wizard of Oz. This reference is from a movie almost almost 100 years old on a blind bag minifigure that most people are just gonna put on a shelf and never look at again. So a reference this deep is pretty crazy when you think about it. But the Wizard of Oz details don't stop at the diploma, because the Tin Man from the same series has a printed tile showing the heart-shaped pocket watch that the wizard gives him at the end of the movie. This was a physical object meant to represent his new awakening to emotions. The prop is on screen for maybe 60 seconds out of an hour-and-a-half long movie. But because everything built up to that moment, it makes sense why LEGO made it as an accessory. But now, let's talk about Rex Danger Vest CMF variants, because there's a lot going on with them. The Vest Friend Rex figure has a faceplate that looks a lot like the aesthetic from Alpha Team, a theme that ran from 2001 to 2005 and has since drifted off into the abyss of retired LEGO. It's not completely forgotten, but it's niche enough that catching the reference requires a lot of LEGO knowledge. But the bigger detail on that same minifig is right there on the torso. Vest Friend Rex wears a construction worker outfit in the same style that Emmett wore in the first movie. At the time of release, before anyone had seen the second movie, it just looked like a fun alternate outfit for a new character. But after the second movie came out, this was clearly foreshadowing. Later we found out Rex Danger Vest is the future version of Emmett, and LEGO dressed him in Emmett's clothes before the film even came out. It wasn't really a spoiler, so it's not like it gave anything away, but I have to say, LEGO cut it really close. But the Gone Golfin' President Business minifig from the LEGO Movie 2 is a very funny variant of Lord Business in a polo shirt and khakis holding a golf club, living his best life. But what this minifig is actually showing you is his post-redemption arc. This is Lord Business after he stopped being a villain, and apparently took up golf as his retirement hobby. He showed up a little bit in the second movie, but LEGO making a real version of him is just awesome. You already know that he was the main villain in the LEGO Adventurers theme, and that he got his own haunted house set called Manor Von Baron, which was haunted by Pharaoh Hotep. But there's something about this set that I didn't tell you. If you go upstairs to one of the rooms, there's a skeleton hanging upside down from the ceiling wearing a top hat. Now, at first, this just seems like a creepy decoration for a haunted house. But if you actually read the official instructions for the set, there's a line of text that changes everything. It says, "Some say Sam Sinister's car exploded while running from the law, leaving only his skeleton and top hat behind." Now, you might be wondering what this has to do with Baron, but Sam Sinister is actually one of his other identities. So this isn't just a random skeleton that LEGO threw in to make the house look scary. This is literally Baron Von Baron's dead body hanging in his own house. Or is it? The instructions also say that some say there was once a third twin butler, and that no one knows for sure. So did the Baron fake his death? Is this really him? We have no idea. But this next minifigure is 100% dead. No questions asked. Blacktron Future Generation, also known as Blacktron 2, was a space sub-theme that ran from 1991 to 1994. The minifigs were basically just doing villain stuff for 3 years, but then the theme ended in 1994 and everyone kind of forgot about them. But fast forward over a decade to 2009 and LEGO releases a Nintendo DS game called LEGO Battles, and one of the storylines is about the Mars mission theme. There's an intro cutscene that plays when you first start, and in this cutscene, an astronaut named Biff lands on the Martian surface and walks right past a skeleton wedged in between two rocks. If you pause the cutscene and actually look at that skeleton, it's wearing the full Blacktron uniform, so this is without a doubt a dead Blacktron member. This is super similar to the Aqua Raiders minifigure that died in the Atlantis theme, only this time this Blacktron skeleton didn't even get a real-life minifigure. But here's the thing. Dying wasn't even the worst thing that happened to a Blacktron astronaut. In 2024, Series 26 of the collectible minifigures came out. The theme for that series was space, and one of the minifigures is called the Blacktron Mutant. This minifigure shows a Blacktron 2 astronaut who's in the middle of a biological transformation. One of his arms is split and mutating, and one of his legs is already fully gone. According to the official description, this transformation was caused by exposure to alien technology. But there are transformations that are way worse than this, especially in the Hidden Side theme. This theme ran from 2019 to 2020, and it was all about a town named Newberry that got invaded by ghosts. This wasn't your typical ghost story, where spirits just float around and scare people. The ghosts were transforming people into monsters, and one of the most disturbing transformations is the Bawa. Before everything went wrong, this guy was just a normal train conductor. He worked for the Southeast Berrymont Engine Railroads, and during the Newberry haunting, something called a gloom mutation hit him. In Hidden Side lore, gloom mutations are what happens when humans get transformed into something from cosmic horror. So this regular train conductor got turned into a bat zombie hybrid thing. He even got a superpower that paralyzes his prey. But the Bawa's story is nothing compared to what happened to Anomalo. This guy used to be a high-class seafood chef. He was successful and good at his job, but then the Newberry haunting happened, and his soul didn't just get corrupted. It got merged with cockroaches, multiple of them, and somehow it gets even worse. He didn't just transform and then live as a monster. He became one of Lady E's tools in her soul collecting mission. Lady E is the main villain of the Hidden Side theme, and her whole goal was to collect souls for whatever evil reason. Anomalo now has extra arms growing out of his body and tentacles that move on their own, and he's being used as a tool to help collect more souls. But let's move away from horror for a second and talk about something way more lighthearted. In Lego City, there's a criminal who's become kind of a legend among fans, and his name is Stumpy. This guy first showed up in a set called Wild River Escape, and he's a criminal who stole some treasure and is trying to escape the police on a raft. And apparently, he was able to get away because he shows up in a completely different set called Mountain Police Headquarters, and he's disguised himself as a tree to avoid getting caught by the mountain police. Because of this disguise, Lego gave him the nickname Stumpy, and it's one of the funniest Lego City criminal disguises by far. And speaking of Lego criminals, let me tell you about a manhunt that's been happening across multiple different CMF series. In 2013, Series 13 of the CMF came out, and one of the minifigs was the Sheriff. His official bio says that he's captured every single outlaw in the West, except for one guy who keeps getting away. And if you look at the wanted poster that comes with him, it shows the Bandit from Series 6, which came out 3 years earlier in 2010. So Lego made a storyline where this sheriff has been hunting one specific criminal for 3 real-world years across 7 different minifigure series. But now, let me show you a transformation that took over 30 years to be revealed. Back in the 1990s, there was a castle sub-theme called Fright Nights, and the main villain was a character named Basil the Bat Lord. The Fright Nights theme was all about this spooky medieval horror aesthetic, and Basil was at the center of it as the big bad guy. The theme ended in the 90s, and Basil kind of just disappeared from Lego. But then in 2024, over 30 years later, Series 25 of the CMF came out, and one of them was called the Vampire Knight. At first, this just looks like a random vampire wearing knight armor, but if you take off the helmet and look at his face, you see that he has a very distinctive mustache, the exact same one that Basil had back in the 90s. Turns out, this is the official canonical fate of Basil. He became an actual vampire at some point after his theme ended. But enough about transformations. With this next minifigure, Lego expanded the lore in a way that made us completely rethink what we knew about him. In the 90s, there was a castle sub-theme called Wolfpack, and back then, they were just known as Forest Bandits. That was pretty much their entire identity. But then in 2025, Series 27 of the CMF came out, and one of them is the Wolfpack Beastmaster. This character has an actual wolf companion, and the description tells us something that completely changes the wolf pack. They weren't just random bandits who liked wolves. They were actually a culture with deep ties to the animal kingdom. The wolf pack had a genuine connection with wolves and other animals. Lego completely humanized them with just one minifigure. But now, let me show you a character who waited 22 years to get a physical minifigure. In 1999, Lego released a video game called Lego Racers, and the final boss was a character named Rocket Racer, but he only existed in the video game. There was no physical minifigure of him. Now, fast forward 22 years to 2021, and Lego releases a city stunt set. And in that set is finally a physical Rocket Racer minifigure. And LEGO didn't just throw together some random racer and call him Rocket Racer either. The details here are matched perfectly. And speaking of characters who waited decades to show up, let me tell you about Camilla and Bo-Son Will. Way back in 1989, LEGO published a Pirates comic book. In that comic, there was a character named Camilla, who was the Admiral's daughter, and she had a crush on a character named Bo-Son Will, who was the quartermaster on Redbeard's pirate ship. These characters existed in one comic book and weren't seen again until this year, when the minifigure vending machine set came out. In that set, there are grown-up versions of Camilla and Bo-Son Will, and according to the lore, Camilla didn't just grow up. She followed in her father's footsteps and got promoted all the way to Admiral herself. So we're seeing a romance that started in a 1989 comic book finally get updated 37 years later, and it's kind of a Romeo and Juliet situation, which is pretty funny for LEGO. However, Ninjago has always been a theme with super deep lore. And I'm gonna tell you about a character who's been part of that lore since the very beginning, but only just got a physical minifigure. The first Spin Jitsu Master. This guy is basically the god of the Ninjago universe. He's the one who created Spin Jitsu and created the world of Ninjago itself. He's been mentioned in flashbacks and referenced for years as this legendary figure, but you never saw his face clearly, and there was never a physical minifigure of him that you could actually buy. That is until this year, when the Old Town set came out to celebrate Ninjago's 15th anniversary. This set finally gives us the first Spin Jitsu Master with a fully revealed face, which is so sick. He's like the most important person in all of Ninjago. And while we're on Ninjago, there's another character who finally got a physical minifigure recently. Liber. She's in the Ninja Character Display set, and if you're not deep into Ninjago lore, you might not know that she's Jay's biological mother. Jay is one of the main ninja, and he's the Master of Lightning. But before him, that title belonged to Liber. In the story, there was an event called the Serpentine War that happened generations before the current ninja team was even born. And during that war, there were elemental masters who fought to protect Ninjago. Eventually, Liber ended up becoming the Master of Lightning, and she passed that power down to her son Jay. But until the character display set came out, she'd only been mentioned in backstories. So now we finally have a physical minifigure. But there's one more Ninjago character I just have to talk about: Crux. Crux is a villain who posed as a museum curator named Dr. Sanders Saunders. His whole deal was that he was pretending to be this curator while secretly being a villain with evil plans. Way back in 2017, LEGO made a minifigure of his younger self in a set called Dawn of Iron Doom. But for 8 years, there was no minifigure of his older disguised version as Dr. Saunders until 2026, when the Old Town set came out and LEGO finally gave us one. And here's what makes this minifigure so perfect. It has a double-sided head, one that shows his friendly curator expression and another that shows his angry villain face. LEGO literally built his double identity into the physical minifigure, which is awesome. But now, let me show you a really deep connection over 25 years of LEGO history. In the Monkey Kid theme, there's a set called the City of Lanterns, and in that set, there are these robots called Citybots A05 and A16. They're just background characters helping out in the city, but if you look closely at their heads, you'll notice that they're using a very specific head print, and it's actually the exact same one that robots in the Spyrius and Explorian sub-themes used in the 90s. These Citybots are a direct reference to a droid in the Mystic Mountain Time-Lapse set from 1996, which is super specific. And speaking of space sub-themes continuing in modern themes, there's an alien character in the Space Police 3 sub-theme named Craniac. But if you look at his back, he has the 1998 Insectoids logo printed on him. And weirdly, his original name was Insectoid Zim. In the lore of the Insectoids theme, there were these refugees called Zotaxians who came from a planet called Holux. And apparently, these refugees didn't just disappear when Insectoids ended in 1999. They became part of the far future Space Police Society, and Craniac is the proof. But now, let me tell you about a minifigure whose job description is absolutely wild when you think about it: the Zookeeper. She came out in Series 5 of the CMF way back in 2011, and obviously she seems like a normal city zookeeper. But if you read her official bio, you find out that she's not just responsible for taking care of animals in Lego City. She takes care of creatures from a bunch of different Lego themes. She manages dragons from the castle theme, rock monsters from the Power Miners theme, and even escaped dinosaurs that were brought back from Dino Island. So this one woman is basically running a zoo for every kind of animal in existence. But not every piece of minifigure lore is about big storylines and connecting themes. Sometimes the lore is just really personal and sweet, like Rocket Boy from Series 17, who's based on a real person. Specifically, he's a sig fig based on senior design manager Tara Weich's son. She's one of the designers at Lego, and her son was obsessed with space exploration when he was younger. So she designed a minifigure based on him and made it a reality. It's not the craziest piece of lore, but it's super wholesome, so I had to talk about it. It's been going on for years, and Lego still hasn't bothered to fix it. They have an instructions website where you can download PDFs for any set they've ever made. The idea is that if you lose your instructions or buy a used set without them, you can just grab them from the website. But the problem is they upload instructions to their servers before the actual sets are announced. And since Bricklink goes directly to Lego's own instruction servers for every set in their database, people figured out they could just start guessing set numbers. You type in a number, and if instructions exist, they'll load. So fans just started trying numbers until they found something. The Luke Skywalker lightsaber gift set is one of the most popular cases. People found the full instructions sitting on Lego's website before Lego ever said the set existed. But finding instructions requires some effort and mostly luck. So let me show you something that's way more systematic. In 2025, a Reddit user figured out how to use Bricklink's inventory comparison tool to expose canceled sets that were never even announced. Bricklink pulls all its data directly from Lego's official parts database. When Lego plans a set, they make a spot for it in the database with every part listed out. And even if it gets canceled, sometimes the data just sits there because someone forgot to delete it. So this guy on Reddit started looking for gaps in set numbers and comparing inventory data. And he found stuff Lego never wanted anyone to see. An early version of the Bad Batch shuttle showed up with a completely different cockpit design and no speeder bikes. There was a canceled 2021 UCS set that was supposed to have Count Dooku for the 20th anniversary, and way more. Brick Fanatics actually verified all of this by doing the process themselves and finding the same data. So this is 100% confirmed. The thing is though, this exact same database problem happened with Lego Dimensions too. When the theme got canceled in October of 2017, all the planned Year 3 expansion packs were scrapped. Lego wasn't going to make them or announce them, but here's what they forgot. They'd already put all the parts data for those canceled packs into Bricklink's database. The same Reddit user who found the canceled Star Wars sets used the exact same comparison model for Dimensions, and they found everything Lego had planned for Year 3. A Ghostbusters 2016 Holtzman Fun Pack, Knight Rider, Teen Titans Go. There were even mysterious entries labeled connectable that made it seem like Lego was making an entirely new building concept that nobody knew existed. Now, sometimes leaks come from places like this, but other times they come from places Lego legally has to use. Before Lego can sell a set, they have to submit it for safety certifications in every country they sell to. Different regions have different safety standards, so Lego sends the sets to testing agencies who make sure they meet the standards. And those certification listings are usually publicly searchable on government websites before Lego makes any announcement. Jay's Brick blog talked about finding a blurry picture of Gringotts Wizarding Bank in a database way before the set was revealed. Fans who pay attention just check these databases all the time, looking for new sets, and since Lego legally has to do this, there's no real way to avoid it. But now, let me show you a leak that was just pure stupidity. In March of 2025, Lego's official Mexico Facebook page posted a 13-second teaser video. Just a short clip showing Lego bricks building Pikachu's tail. But the problem was that Lego hadn't announced their collab with Pokemon yet, so this trailer gave away away the entire thing. The video was online for maybe a few minutes before someone at LEGO realized what happened and deleted it. But by then, Reddit's LEGO Leaks community had already downloaded and archived the whole thing. So LEGO was forced to officially confirm the collab the same day, because denying it would have been pointless. Apparently, LEGO Mexico just published their announcement early without checking if corporate had given the green light yet, so they really messed that one up. But the funny part is, Pokemon leaked again in early 2026 in an even more embarrassing way. Before LEGO made any announcement about which specific Pokemon sets were coming, fans found product pages live on international versions of LEGO.com. The Kanto region badge collection and the Pikachu and Pokeball set were both up with full descriptions and pictures. LEGO made the product pages in advance to be ready for the launch, and someone published them way too early, so fans just stumbled onto them while browsing the website. But if you think leaking 2 sets is bad, let me tell you what happened at the Shanghai trade show in November of 2025. LEGO revealed the Tulip Bouquet set at the China International Import Expo and put the product page live on their website. The page had pictures showing the set from different angles and in different settings. But in one of those marketing lifestyle photos, there were 3 unannounced botanical sets just sitting casually in the background. The daisy set, the flowering cactus, and the peace lily were all on the table behind the tulips, so fans noticed basically immediately. But this isn't even the only time this happened with botanicals. The flower wall set was in LEGO's official promo before there was any announcement about it. Bricks Up documented that LEGO showed the set on their own before they'd officially announced it, exactly like the tulip situation. But it also happened with Happy Plants 2. The sequel to the Happy Plants set got leaked when a low-res promo pic surfaced, showing 2 new plant pots sitting next to the 2025 version. Game Rant described it as a prematurely emerged promotional image from an official LEGO source. But sometimes the mistake is even simpler than that. LEGO posted images of the unreleased 2026 McLaren F1 car when they were supposed to be showing a different version that was already released. So the very first images anyone saw of the new Technic F1 car came from LEGO mixing up their own files. They had 2 McLaren F1 sets with similar names and similar looks, so someone grabbed the wrong images when they were updating the website. But sometimes it's not the image itself that leaks something, it's what's on the packaging. The 2025 Field Flowers polybag had LEGO botanicals printed at the top of the bag, instead of LEGO icons like every other botanical set. This was a small detail that most people wouldn't think twice about, but it basically confirmed that botanicals was splitting off from icons and becoming its own theme before LEGO made a statement about it. Brick fanatics noticed this and predict that this would happen, because another polybag did something similar. When LEGO officially revealed the 2025 Mini Ninja Combo Mech polybag, the packaging had artwork showing a storm destroying a village. This just seemed like decorative box art, until people realized it matched a lot of unannounced Ninjago sets that were rumored to be coming out in 2025. The Storm Rider Mech, the Storm Dragon, and the Dragonian Storm Village all had this same storm theme. So LEGO accidentally confirmed an entire story arc for an unreleased Ninjago wave by printing it on the packaging for a polybag. But now, let me show you something that happens on a regular basis and LEGO just doesn't seem to care. LEGO publishes the official Star Wars magazine through different publishers in different countries. The German edition comes out a month before the UK edition, and the back cover of every magazine shows what free minifigure is coming in next month's issue. So fans in Germany can see what's coming in next month's magazine a full month before fans in the UK even get this month's issue. But now let's talk about the Burrow leak, because it was genuinely insane. On September 5th, 2024, the official LEGO House Instagram posted a photo promoting a Harry Potter designer signing event. Designer George Gilliatt was the main guest, so they posted a photo of him. But in that photo, he's holding a sealed box of the Burrow Collector's Edition set, which at the time hadn't been announced yet. The post went live to hundreds of thousands of followers, and then it got deleted, probably within minutes once someone realized what had happened. But Jay's Brick Blog had already independently verified it was real. A couple days later, LEGO had to announce the Burrow set just like they did with Pokemon. But at least the Burrow was just a simple deleted post. In August of 2022, something way crazier happened. Multiple customers in New Zealand ordered the Lion Knights Castle set, but when they got their packages, they found the Hogwarts Express Collector's Edition set instead. This was a completely different set that hadn't been officially revealed by LEGO yet. Nobody outside of LEGO was supposed to know it even existed. A Reddit user named Legend of Tovan documented the entire unboxing, posting photos of the instructions, the stickers, everything. So this was a pretty big blunder on LEGO's part. But this isn't even the only time it's happened. It happened again in September of 2024. A Reddit user ordered the Burrow set, and with their purchase, they were supposed to get a gift set called Borgin and Burks. But when they got the package, LEGO had sent them Over the Moon with Pharrell Williams instead. This was an unreleased set that wasn't supposed to ship for months. LEGO contacted them and confirmed it was a warehouse mistake and sent them the correct gift instead. But the customer apparently kept the Pharrell set anyway, even though LEGO asked them to send it back. I can't tell if bro is a legend or a scammer. What do you think? Anyways, now let me tell you the story of how the return of Bionicle in 2015 got leaked 4 times before it actually happened. The first one was way back in December of 2013. LEGO concept developer Asger Johansson updated his public LinkedIn profile. His description said he was developing the concept, story, and communication for a new LEGO action figure theme launching in 2015. Now, his previous work included Hero Factory and Galaxy Squad, which were both action figure themes. So LEGO fan sites immediately started connecting the dots and theorizing that this mystery theme could be Bionicle returning from cancellation. It was just a theory, but in fans' heads, it was 100% true. So what happened next? Well, in July of 2014, fans started noticing something really weird on LEGO.com. If you went to the website and typed Bionicle into the search bar, it would redirect you to a coming soon page. But if you searched for other discontinued themes like Atlantis or Power Miners, you just got normal search results or nothing. This spread across the entire LEGO community like wildfire. LEGO noticed what was happening and quickly changed the search to show Hero Factory instead, trying to cover their tracks. But Brickset immediately called them out, saying that must mean they accidentally released that news too soon. But it gets even better. In September of 2014, LEGO posted a teaser image on Google+, building hype for a mystery announcement. The image was cryptic and didn't show much. The whole point was to build hype around their announcement. But a Brickset commenter looked at the image URL and noticed something hilarious. The file name was Bionicle4new.jpg. The mystery announcement was supposed to be mysterious, and LEGO just put the answer directly in the file name where everyone could see it. The fan wrote at the time that it kinda lessens the excitement just a tad bit, obviously being sarcastic. But the fourth leak happened 4 days before the official reveal, literally right before the finish line. Gadanui from BZ Power found a product image on the image cache servers for LEGO's website. The image showed a golden mask that clearly belonged to a Bionicle character. The Brick fan covered it as a separate story, saying how this looked exactly like the thumbnail image that would be on LEGO's product page once the sets actually launched. Along with this, people also found an animation file on the cache. LEGO was actively building the Bionicle product page on their publicly accessible servers before making any announcement. The entire page was under construction in a place where anyone could find it if they knew where to look. Moving on from Bionicle though, this next one is one of the weirdest possible ways a set could leak. In August of 2021, YouTuber M&R Productions was looking at official screenshots for LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga video game. In one of the screenshots, there was an AT-AT that was way bigger and more detailed than any AT-AT set that existed at the time. This lined up with lots of rumors that LEGO was working on a UCS AT-AT. The theory M&R came up with was that LEGO had given the game developers at TT Games early access to the physical model so they could recreate it in the game. And then someone at LEGO or TT Games used a screenshot with that set in the official marketing without realizing it would be a leak. The UCS AT-AT officially released in November of 2021, and it definitely looks a lot like the one in the Skywalker saga. But to end the video, let me show you what is probably the single biggest LEGO leak of all time. In 2012, Fast Company magazine published an article about LEGO's headquarters in Denmark. The article had a picture of one of the design studios, which is a cool inside scoop. The only problem is that there were dozens of unreleased Star Wars prototype sets clearly visible in this picture. Collectors who analyzed the photo spotted what looked like UCS versions of the Hyena droid bomber, an FX medical droid, an Imperial probe droid, and there was even a red TIE interceptor. And none of these sets were ever officially announced. Some of them eventually got made years later, but most of them never saw the light of day. This was a way bigger inside scoop than what Fast Company probably planned on releasing, but the fans were definitely happy about it. Starting with one of the coolest pieces in the entire theme. In the Ender Dragon and End Ship set from 2024, the Ender Dragon head isn't just a display piece. You can actually put it on your minifigures like a helmet. This is exactly how it works in the actual game. When you defeat the Ender Dragon, you can mount its head on a wall, or you can wear it on your head, and LEGO replicated that perfectly. But that's not the only cool minifigure update in the Minecraft theme, because the Parrot Houses set from 2025 has the first ever Minecraft minifigure with a 2-color arm mold. Now, this might not seem like a big deal at first, but 2-color arm molding is usually reserved for expensive or special figures. It's when LEGO molds 2 different colors of plastic into one piece, and it's way more expensive to make than just printing one solid colored arm. The fact that they used this technique on a random Minecraft minifigure shows how much the theme has evolved since it started back in 2012. And speaking of how much the theme has evolved, did you know LEGO and Minecraft almost made a video game before the first set even came out? Around 2011 to 2012, Mojang and the LEGO Group were secretly working on a project codenamed Project Rex Kwon Do, which was officially called Brickcraft or Minecraft LEGO Edition. This was supposed to be a hybrid game where Minecraft blocks were made of actual LEGO bricks. The whole thing came to light in December of 2020 on the Bits and Bricks podcast, and apparently it was going to be a first-person shooter game where you could build with LEGO-style blocks in the Minecraft universe. But here's where it gets interesting. The project actually fell apart because of creative differences. Mojang wanted the bricks to look damaged and worn in the game to make it look more realistic, but LEGO refused. They didn't want their precious bricks to be shown getting damaged, even in a video game, and they were also worried about their family-friendly reputation, since this was supposed to be a shooter game. So instead of getting Brickcraft or Minecraft LEGO Edition, we got LEGO sets, and honestly, I'm kinda happy it happened like this, even though the game would have been really cool. Keeping the evolution going, let's talk about when Minecraft Big Figs first showed up, because these things completely changed the game for the theme. LEGO introduced Big Figs in 2 waves, and they're exactly what they sound like. More detailed figures that were way bigger than standard minifigures. Series 1 brought us the first oversized mobs and minifigures, and Series 2 expanded on that with even more options. Before Big Figs, every mob was either minifigure sized or built from bricks, which made the scale pretty inconsistent depending on the mob. Now we've got massive skeletons, huge creepers, and way more, all in this perfect in-between size that actually makes sense for Minecraft. It's one of those updates that seems obvious in hindsight, but at the time, it was a huge deal for the theme. Another big change was when the Steve minifigure got a massive update in 2024. In the Steve's Desert Expedition set, we got a completely new Steve design with updated printing and a fresh look. Now, truly, I have no idea why LEGO decided to do this. Obviously, Steve has looked the same pretty much forever, so I really don't know where LEGO got this face from. But the same set also gave us 2 smaller but really cool updates. First, the campfire got a total redesign, and the cactus did too. LEGO's been trying to figure out the best way to build cacti for years, and this set gave us a design that's at least kind of accurate to the one in game. To make one that's actually accurate, they'd probably have to make an entire mold for it, and LEGO's pretty stingy when it comes to molds, so we'll see what happens. Anyways, let's talk about zombie villagers for a second, because they got a huge upgrade in 2022 in the Abandoned Village set. The new zombie villager design is a night and day difference compared to the old one. The original zombie villager was pretty basic. It was basically just a zombie with a green villager's head, but the 2022 version has way more detail. The torso print is way better, the eyes are a lot more red, and one of them even gets a straw hat. It's such a massive improvement that when you put them side by side, the old one honestly looks kind of ridiculous. Speaking of improvements to hostile mobs, the witch got a pretty interesting update in the Pumpkin Farm set from 2023. The new witch in this set came with a hat that you could actually remove from her head. Before this, witch heads were molded with the hat attached, so you couldn't take it off without literally destroying the piece. But now you can pop the hat off and on whenever you want, which means we can turn Steve into a witch. But now I gotta talk about frogs, because LEGO's updated them a lot, and each version is better than the last. The first major update came in 2023 with the Swamp Adventure set, which introduced a completely new frog mold. This was a huge step up from whatever LEGO was doing before. The new mold actually looked like the frogs from Minecraft, but they didn't stop there. Later in 2023, the Pumpkin Farm set added a gray frog variant to the fleet. And then in 2024, the Frog House set gave us a bright green frog with even better detailing. So within the span of 2 years, LEGO went from basic frogs to having multiple colors and designs that all look incredible. Frogs weren't the only aquatic mob getting love though, because axolotls got a new color in 2023 as well. In Minecraft, axolotls come in 5 different colors, and LEGO's slowly been adding them to sets over time. They haven't quite gotten there yet, but hopefully we'll have all 5 really soon. If we're gonna talk about colors though, we have to mention sheep, because LEGO's been updating these guys a lot. The Crafting Box 4.0 set from 2023 had a new sheep with a blue-green color inside of it. Then again in 2023, they threw a pink sheep in the Animal Sanctuary set, but unfortunately it wasn't an actual figure like the blue one. But in 2024, LEGO added an orange sheep to the Windmill Farm set. Just like with axolotls, there are a few different color sheep in Minecraft, except there are way more than 5, so they've got a long way to go. But they're slowly but surely getting every color in the lineup. This next update is a little different though, because it was actually kind of a downgrade. In 2023, LEGO dropped the Bee Cottage set, and it came with a baby zombie minifigure. Now, this one is really hard to notice, but when you look at it next to the old baby zombie, you'll see that it's missing the pixels on its torso. Obviously, this isn't that big of a deal, but it's definitely weird that LEGO changed the mold to get rid of detail instead of giving it more. Anyways, a hostile mob that didn't get a downgrade are the Illagers. The Illager Desert Patrol set is the first set to include the new Illager banner, which is based on the banners that Illager patrols carry in the game. LEGO's used them in sets before, but they always had these 2 clips on top, which is obviously not how they look in game. So now that it's a clean tile, it matches the game a lot better. But it's not just the mobs that are getting updates. The main characters are too. The Nether Lava Battle set from 2025 has the first Alex minifigure with an angry face print. Before this, Alex was always smiling or had a neutral face, which didn't really make sense when you're supposed to be fighting mobs in the Nether. But now she's got a battle-ready face that actually matches the action these scenes are depicting. Speaking of the Nether, the zombie piglin finally got a proper update in 2025. The Baby Pig House set has the new and improved Zombie Piglin minifigure, which replaces the old Zombie Pigman design. This change actually happened in Minecraft itself back in 2020, when the Nether update replaced Zombie Pigmen with Zombie Piglins. LEGO took a few years to catch up, but now the minifigure actually looks like the current version of the mob. That same set also updated the regular pig print, which might seem minor, but it's actually pretty noticeable if you compare it to older versions. The new print has better shading, more detail, and just looks way more polished than the original version. It's one of those updates where if you don't have an old pig sitting next to the new one, you might not realize anything changed, but once you see them side by side, the difference is really obvious. Another animal like this are cats. In the Crafting Box 4.0 set, LEGO added a new cat color, and they also included a sitting version of an old cat. Then in 2025, the Mushroom House set gave us another new cat print with even more detail and better colors. With moves like these, it's obvious that LEGO knows they have a lot of variations to work through, so it's good to see that they're actually trying. Now let's talk about something that happened earlier in the theme's history, but still deserves attention: the expansion of cube head mobs. In 2017, LEGO introduced new cube heads that weren't just for creepers and zombies. We got a dark red magma cube, a witch head with an integrated hat, and the first transparent bright green slime cube. These were a quiet expansion of the cube mob system that started with basic slimes, and looking at what we have today, clearly this opened the floodgates in ways we didn't know were possible back then. Just like how slimes got their own mold, silverfish got their own mold too. Before this, there was no good way to build a silverfish in LEGO form. They're small, annoying, and kind of hard to translate translate into bricks. So LEGO didn't really have any choice but to make a mold instead. If you've ever mined into a stronghold and gotten swarmed by silverfish, you know how important it is to have these in your LEGO builds. They're not the flashiest mob, but having an accurate version is pretty satisfying. Another mob with an insanely accurate LEGO form is the Hoglin, specifically the new one in the Nether Portal ambush set from 2024. Compared to the old Hoglin design, this one has way more life to it. LEGO completely changed the colors, the tusks, the face print, pretty much everything about this guy got an upgrade. The old Hoglin was clearly not the best looking mob, and another one that actually looked worse than this was the old Husk. The first Husk minifigure came out in the Creeper Mine set from 2019, and I think we can all agree that this design is just not it. There's barely any detail on the entire minifig, and it basically just looks like 3 different color browns put together. But in the Badlands Mineshaft set from 2024, everything changed. We got a completely new Husk design, and just like the Hoglin, it's better in every way. The faceplate and torso are way more detailed, the legs got a better color, like I said, literally everything got better. But wolves also got some love in 2024 in the Wolf Stronghold set, only it wasn't the wolf itself. This set introduced a new wolf shield that you can give to your minifigures, which could be a reference to how important wolves are as companions in Minecraft. Once you tame a wolf, it'll follow you around and help you fight mobs, so having a shield that represents them is a cool way to show that bond. And also, let's be for real, the design in general just looks sick. One thing I haven't really talked about though are plants, and the Trails and Tails update from 2023 gave LEGO a lot more room to work with. The biggest plants from this update were the torch flowers and the pitcher plant, and you can actually find them in the Cherry Blossom Garden set from 2024. They aren't that accurate to the Minecraft version, since having something so small with that many colors is basically impossible in LEGO, but it's still cool to see LEGO keeping up with the new updates, even if it does take them a long time to make their version of it. Speaking of things that took a while to show up, the Loom finally made its LEGO debut in the Windmill Farm set from 2024. In Minecraft, looms are essential for creating custom banners. You use them to apply patterns and designs to blank banners, which is super useful for decorating your base or marking territory. It's honestly kind of shocking that it took until 2024 for LEGO to make one, considering how important they are to the game. But now that we have one, you can actually build out a proper crafting area with all the stations you'd actually use in Minecraft. Another staple of Minecraft is the Nether Portal, and in 2023, it got a completely new design in the Armory set. Now, at first glance, you might actually think it looks worse than the old one, but the reason LEGO designed it this way was so they could give it a brand new play function. Now the portal swings open, which is really good for people who actually play with their Minecraft sets. The last thing I want to show you though is something you're really gonna like. In the Abandoned Village set from 2022, we got the first LEGO version of a campfire, and they made it look so much more accurate to the game, at least from the front. The fire pieces look really good, and even though they aren't on the sides, this is still one of my favorite updates in this entire video. It's one of the only non-living things in LEGO Minecraft that looks this accurate to its version from the game. I'm just sad they had to update it in the one I mentioned earlier. You need to know about a language called Ninjago. The people of Ninjago don't use the English language, even though they all speak it in the show. Instead, they use a language called Ninjago, and when you look closely at the stickers for this set, you'll realize just how much Ninjago there really is. I'm definitely not going to translate all of these, but a good place to start is this poster at the bottom of the set. If you don't recognize any of this, it's because it's referencing an old theme called Fabuland that ended back in 1989. The Ninjago just translates to the name of the theme, but references like this don't have to be this obvious. There's another reference to an old theme called Spybotics that started and ended in 2002, and the sign for it doesn't even have a picture. It's just the name of the theme in Ninjago. This is a really random theme to reference too. It was around for less than a year, and it only got 4 sets. I mean, it completely failed. And yet here it is, referenced in a modern day LEGO set. There are a few more details like these two in the rest of the set, but for now, I'm gonna move on to something more interesting. Did you know that the world record for the fastest time subscribed to a YouTube channel is 2.2 seconds? See if you can beat that, and let me know how you do. Anyways, the most obvious thing about this set is that it's a giant city. There are ads all over the place and minifigures living in apartments. So, to keep themselves entertained, these minifigures build LEGO sets, just like us. There are many versions of actual LEGO sets all over the place in city workshops, but one spot in particular has 5 in the same room. There's the original Samurai Mech from 2012, Lloyd's Titan Mech from 2019, Cole's Titan Dragon Mech from 2024, Jay's Titan Mech from 2023, and Zane's Titan Mech Battle from 2021. Whoever lives here even built and displayed the original Samurai Mech too. You get to make a tiny little world when you build this set, so obviously LEGO sets aren't the only thing minifigures do for entertainment. They watch movies too, but to see these, we're gonna have to move over to the Ninjago City set from 2017. The first one is this poster for a movie called Shadow of Ronin, which is actually referencing a Ninjago video game that came out back in 2012. But on the right side of the poster, there's a little circle with the word film, and if you push on it, 3 more posters pop out on the left. Number 1 is actually an ad for a car that costs 40,000 Ninjago dollars, and the Ninjargon just says cars. Number 2 is a movie poster for a Galador movie coming soon. Get that out of here, bro. Ain't nobody watching that. But number 3 is a poster for a movie called Return of the Brick Separator. I guess the first Brick Separator movie in the Palace Cinema set must have done pretty well, but the sequel is rated 18 and up. Sorry, kids. Keeping the entertainment train going, there's also a comic book store in Ninjago City. But if you know anything about these stores, you know they sell way more than just comics. First of all, this place is selling a bunch of random collectibles, but it's also selling the cat poster from the end of the Lego movie, which is just awesome. You love to see it. But if you go down into the store, you'll find the single employee, who of course is wearing a Galador t-shirt, but you'll also find some comics and some trading cards. The comics are about a spacefaring samurai who only exists in the Ninjago world, but the trading cards look a little familiar. They're all referencing different themes. I don't know what all of them are, but I can definitely see Adventurers, Shima, and the Lego movie. So if you know what these other cards are referencing, let me know in the comments. Oh, and just in case you didn't know about the crazy sale at the store, you can go over to the ATM and pull out over $1,000 in Lego money. This ATM is actually functional and can dispense 11 $100 bills in total, which is pretty crazy for a regular Lego set. But let's go back to the City Workshop set for a minute, so I can show you all the other references to long gone themes. Right above the Fabuland poster, there's a little green logo with some palm trees on it, and the Ninjargon translates to Paradisa. I had never actually heard of it before making this video, but this is an old sub-theme to the town theme that ended in 1997. Another poster that's pretty similar is this one all the way at the top of the set. Now, because of the ninjas, you might think this is referencing Ninjago, but that's where you're wrong. This poster is referencing the ninja sub-theme from the castle theme that ended in the year 2002. The 3 minifigures are Ninja Ito, one of the Shoguns, and Ninja Red. But the thing Red's flying and the building in the back are also from the ninja sub-theme. Red is flying the Ninpo Big Bat set, and the building in the back is the Ninja Fire Fortress set. This theme was literally the inspiration for Ninjago, and is probably the only reason we got it in the first place. So this reference actually makes sense, unlike a lot of the other ones. The last old theme I'll show you though is actually still going on today, and isn't leaving anytime soon. Inside the room the ninja poster is on, there's this rack with 4 tiles on it, and one of them has the Duplo bunny being summoned by a wand out of a hat. But wait a minute, there's only one man who'd do something like this. Dorama. And funnily enough, this is actually his room. So let's see what else he's got in here. For starters, he's got a trading card of Naya on his desk, and a tile piece with the wizard Magisto from the castle theme. At the front door, he has a welcome mat with all 4 suits from a deck of cards in all 4 corners. Very fitting for Dorama. He also has a record player, which reads the RB, or in other words, the Royal Blacksmith's Barbershop Quartet, which Cole's father was a member of. But this wouldn't be Dorama's room without some giant curtains on the wall. This room alone goes to show how many references there truly are in the big Ninjago sets, which means I could definitely make a part 2 to this video. So let me know if you want that. But there's one more person's room I just have to show you. Zane's. His is actually right under Dorama's, but if you look inside, you'll see a picture of his creator, Dr. Julian, which is very heartwarming. Right next to him, you'll also see a picture of a metal falcon, which is another one of Dr. Julian's creations. Him and Zane were obviously really good friends in the show, so it's nice to see his human side, even though he is a robot. Speaking of Zane, do you know the story behind this minifigure of him wearing a pink gi in the Gamers Market set? You'd have to have pretty good Ninjago knowledge to know about it, so just in case, let me tell you the story. In Season 1, Episode 5 of the Ninjago TV show, Lloyd is officially moving in with the other ninjas. He ends up doing some chores and accidentally washes Zane's white gi with Kai's red gi, and as a result, Zane's comes out pink. Pink is obviously not Zane's color, but after Pythor awoke the Vipoids and the Constrictors, he had to wear it anyway. This episode came out all the way back in 2012, and for years, fans were begging LEGO to make a minifigure of Zane with his pink gi. So in 2020, they finally delivered. He made his first and only appearance in the Gamers Market set, and honestly, I have no idea if he'll ever be in another set. So even though it's a lot more expensive than it was when it came out, you might want to pick one up, just in case. Anyways, let's talk about Ninjargon again, because LEGO designers have actually used it to sign their work in Ninjago sets. In the Temple of the Ultimate Weapon set from 2017, there's this random statue sitting in one of the rooms. Now, maybe this is supposed to be someone from the show, but not today, because the text reads Master Nap, otherwise known as Michael Knapp. He's the senior design manager at LEGO now, but what he's really known for is helping create Ninjago and directing the artists behind the TV show too. I don't know about you, but I think those credentials are more than enough to allow him to have his own statue in this set. Oh, and just because it's right here, this little picture is actually of baby Sensei Wu, and the text says Wu, just so you really know. Another set with Ninjago signatures is the Ninjago City Garden set, and they're hiding in sticker sheet 2. Sticker 40 reads MR, which stands for Marcus Robuler, and sticker 39 reads KWS, which stands for Kjeld Walther Sorensen. Angel Grau Bulon also helped work on this set, so I'm sure his initials are somewhere to be found. I just don't know where they are. While we're in the Ninjago City Market set, there's actually a few more posters I want to add to the list I made before. The first one is based on the Space Police 3 sub-theme from 2009. Along with the Officer and Alien minifigure, there are also illustrations of the Raid VPR set and the Undercover Cruiser set. The next poster is for none other than Johnny Thunder, or the Explorer from Minifigure Series 19. I'm not really too sure. The Ninjargon translates to Adventure Island, coming soon, and the mountains in the back actually reference the mountains from the Ninjago sub-theme The Island. The third one is a poster of some minifigures surfing, and a giant mechanical shark flying out of the water. The Ninjargon translates to Terror, Aqua Sharks, and this is probably referencing when Garmadon attacked Ninjago with a giant mechanical shark, but it's not 100% confirmed. All of these small details have been super sick, but you might be wondering, are there any small details that aren't in a big gigantic set? And the answer is yes, absolutely. First, I'll take you to Naya Samurai X mech set from 2022. Obviously, mechs are a huge deal in the Ninjago universe. I mean, literally everyone gets their own in the end. But one of the first ones was Naya's Samurai mech from 2012. I already talked about how this mech has its own box in the Ninjago City Workshop set, but it's also referenced in this set from 2022. Earlier, I showed you just how human Zane really is, since he has a picture of Dr. Julian and Falcon in his room, and Naya actually has something similar in the cockpit of her mech. The wall on the right has some controls, and a piece of paper with a drawing of Naya's mech from 2012 and all of the original ninjas. This is a great way to show how human these ninjas really are, even after all they've been through. Naya never forgot her roots, and neither did Zane, which is awesome. Another non-gigantic set that's packed full of references is the Destiny's Bounty set from the Ninjago movie theme. In the movie, this place basically became the base of operations for the ninjas, and along with a huge deck, a training room, and a bed for Old Master Wu, the lower level has some of the most memorable weapons and armor in the entire show. Let's start in Master Wu's bedroom and work our way outward. He has a few different things all around him, but one thing that really stands out is Garmadon's helmet. He also has a picture of the original ninjas right next to him, which is another great example of everyone being very human. But let's look at the other side of the room. On the shelf behind his bed, he has a helmet from one of the Anacondri warriors who were first seen in season 4. But I guess this side of the room is his armory or something, because he also has a bunch of weapons. The golden sai and the black sword are pretty standard, but he also has the hilt of the Dijin blade too. It's also known as the Sword of Souls, because it has the ability to imprison people's souls in it. So it's a good thing Master Wu has it. Let's see what the next room has to offer though. This place also has a ton of weapons, but one that you might recognize is the Arrow Blade. These things are made from deep stone and are so powerful that they can even cut through ghosts, which was really helpful against the Ghost Warriors in Season 5. Right next to the Arrow Blade, though, is some armor from a Vermilion warrior. These guys were some of the most infamous warriors in the whole show, so having some of their armor is a pretty big flex, not gonna lie. Now, obviously, there are way more small details in Ninjago than the ones I've been talking about. I'll give a very fast-paced story of how LEGO went from making wooden toys to plastic ones. Basically, the founder of LEGO, old Kurt Christiansen, predicted the future and took a chance on plastic bricks, even though everyone thought he was crazy. After a visit to Copenhagen, where he saw the first ever plastic injecting molding machine and a few patents, LEGO was officially making toys out of plastic. But obviously, these aren't the same bricks we have today. They're all hollowed out on the inside, so there's no actual way to build with them. But don't worry, this is where the patents come in. After a trip to Copenhagen, Godfred Christiansen had the idea to add studs on top of every 2x4 brick and 3 tubes inside to create friction. This happened in 1958, and at this point, Godfred had taken over for his dad, which meant his idea didn't have to get approved by some higher up. He could just do it. So after talking to his lawyer, the idea officially got patented on January 28th, 1958. A lot of people call this the real birthday of LEGO, since they've been using this exact design ever since. And now that you're here, congratulations, you're officially caught up to when LEGO LEGO started using plastic. So now let's talk about what we're all here for. LEGO's design evolution is kind of like a tape measure. The big numbers that stand out are all pillars that needed to happen. But to get to those big numbers, you had to go through all of the little ones in between. And for LEGO, these little numbers are a lot bigger and more important than people think they are. So on top of talking about the most important changes LEGO's made, I'm also going to cover all the little ones in between. And a great place to start are the first sets that use those birthday bricks. They were in a theme called System Ileg, which translates from Danish to System in Play. The most memorable sets from this time period were in the town plan sub-theme, with ones like the fire station, the Volkswagen garage, and the church. These sets have a very distinct, simple design style, since the brick had basically just been invented, and they were still trying to figure out what they could actually do with it. They kept this style for pretty much the entirety of the 1960s, so a lot of the sets from this decade don't look very different. But by the 1970s, LEGO took things up a notch. If we look at our tape measure, one of the most important years for LEGO is 1978, but the years leading up to it are what make that year so important. In 1969, LEGO started the Legoland theme, and over the years, it basically became the LEGO city of its time period. As the years went on, you could clearly see LEGO upgrading their design style. They were adding more pieces to builds, and different ones too, which made every set get better year after year. Now, you might have noticed that something's missing from these sets. Minifigures. There isn't a single one to be found in any of them, but this, my friends, is why I used the tape measure analogy. The first official minifigure came out in 1978, which is mostly why it's such an important year. But 3 years before that, LEGO was testing this minifigure idea, and what we got in 1978 was just a product of the tests. In 1975, LEGO released the Wild West set, and with it came the first ever prototype for minifigures. They didn't have arms or legs, and they didn't even have a face, but they laid the foundation for the minifigures that were soon to come. The prototype was a success, so as time went on, they started adding things to them to see what they could get away with, like a red cross sticker on this one from the Rescue set, and makeshift bandanas on these ones from the Cowboys set. They kept doing different stuff like this, along with experimenting with colors, but eventually 1978 rolled around, and we all know what that means. This is the year LEGO officially released the first real minifigure, and it was just a simple police officer, but it was enough to make everyone lose their minds. The figures went from being whatever you want to call them, to actual people with arms, legs, hands, and a face. A real face. The first set that included this minifigure was the police car, which now is valued at almost $1,000. 1978 is one of the big numbers on LEGO's tape measure though, which means minifigures weren't the only brand new toy in their arsenal. The rest of 1978 brought us Castle in space, and the design style looked way different than anything they'd made in the last 5 years. These weren't just buildings anymore, they were entire worlds with their own identities. They only released one castle set that year, but it had a drawbridge, towers, and enough minifigures to satisfy anyone, while space had rockets, moon bases, and vehicles that looked like they belonged in a sci-fi movie. But what really made these themes stand out were the minifigures. They weren't just generic yellow people anymore. They had different torso designs, unique head coverings, and accessories that actually matched their jobs. A castle knight looked like a castle knight, and an astronaut looked like an astronaut. This might seem obvious now, but back in 1978, this was groundbreaking. But fast forward to 1989, and LEGO did something that changed minifigures forever. The Pirates theme introduced the first major change to minifigure faceplates beyond the simple smiley face. Designer Jens Nygaard Knudsen explained it perfectly. It was necessary to alter the minifigure's expression to develop credible pirates, and a real pirate captain must have a patch on his eye, a peg leg, and a hook. So that's exactly what they did. I mean, this is coming from the guy who literally made minifigures, so how could you not listen? Pirates got eye patches, beards, mustaches, and even lipstick. This was the first time LEGO made a minifigure with a different faceplate, and it opened the floodgates for what was possible with character design. In 1992, the castle theme followed suit. They also started getting minifigs with actual faces, even though most of them still used the smiley face as a base. The biggest differences that year were in facial hair, but as the years went on, they kept expanding until they showed actual emotions. But we'd be nowhere if LEGO only changed the faces. 2 years later, in 1994, LEGO finally decided that legs deserved some attention too. The first minifigure with printed legs was the spurious droid from the Monorail Transport base set. Up until this point, legs were just solid colors, which meant that astronauts, pirates, and police officers all had the same boring legs. But once they started printing on them, every character could be way more detailed and way more unique. Speaking of unique minifigures, in 1995, skeleton minifigures finally appeared. Sounds normal, right? Well, here's the thing. Designer Niels Milan Peterson revealed that the skeleton was actually designed a decade before it showed up in stores. LEGO spent 10 years debating whether or not they should make a dead minifigure because they didn't know how parents would react. Peterson said, "We were told off at the time for creating a dead minifigure, so they shelved it. But eventually they said screw it. Kids love skeletons, and they've been in sets ever since." 2 years later, in 1997, marked the end of the LEGO color explosion, which started back in 1978 when they made Castle in Space. In these years, LEGO's color palette went from a handful of basic ones to almost 100 different ones. This explosion of colors meant that sets could be way more vibrant and detailed than anything that came before them. It also meant that MOC builders had way more options to work with, which is probably why the AFOL community started growing so much during this time period. Clearly, LEGO had been on a roll for a pretty long time, but they had no intention of stopping, because 1999 was another pillar year for LEGO, and it's all thanks to one thing: Star Wars. This was LEGO's first licensed theme, and it proved that they could take someone else's IP and successfully turn it into LEGO. The first wave of Star Wars sets had yellow-faced characters, which made sense since every other minifigure also had a yellow face. But this was just the beginning of something way bigger. In 2004, LEGO made a decision that redefined minifigures again, just like they did in 1989. This was when they finally gave minifigures flesh skin tones instead of the yellow color they'd been using the entire time. It gave minifigures a much more human look, and LEGO Star Wars and Harry Potter were the first themes to get it. LEGO kept the ball rolling in 2005 and released one of the most influential themes that's ever existed, LEGO City. Its prime in the late 2000s and early 2010s is unlike pretty much any other theme during this time period. Everyone knows the commercials, and everyone knows a LEGO City set when they see one. The design style was clean, the builds were intuitive, and the play features were endless. LEGO City basically became the default theme that every kid grew up with, and it's still going strong today. But in 2006, something really interesting happened. LEGO designer Jamie Berard released a book about illegal building techniques, which officially acknowledged that people were building in ways that LEGO never intended. These techniques involve stressing bricks, connecting pieces at weird angles, or using parts in ways they weren't designed for. By publishing this book, LEGO basically said, yeah, we know you're doing this, and it's actually not cool. This gave MOC builders the green light to experiment even more, and it influenced how LEGO themselves started designing sets. The next year, 2007, brought us the modular buildings theme, which was one of the first themes specifically aimed at adults. The first set, the Cafe Corner, was massive, detailed, and expensive. Everything that a set for kids wasn't supposed to be, but it worked. Modular buildings proved that there was a huge market for complex, display-worthy sets, and it set the stage for a lot of what LEGO makes today. The Ultimate Collector series in LEGO Star Wars, that's a direct result of modular buildings showing that adults will pay big money for high-quality builds. The theme technically ended in 2012, but it continued as a sub-theme in the Icons theme in 2013, and it's still going strong today. Let's get back to minifigures though, because 3 years later in 2010, LEGO launched the blind bag collectible minifigure packs, and each one had 16 different characters per series. This was a genius move because it turned minifigures into standalone products instead of just set accessories. Each figure came with unique designs, rare accessories, and limited availability, which made them incredibly collectible. The best part about them though is that they really show how much LEGO's improved in the last 15 years. Look at the minifigures in the first series compared to series 26 from 2024. This one was based solely on outer space, and they even made a minifigure that embodies deep space. Isn't that crazy? As cool as they are, they got nothing on 2014, because that year brought us the Lego Movie, and it was a success that nobody saw coming. This wasn't just a toy commercial disguised as a movie. It was an actual good film that both kids and adults loved. It led to multiple sequels and spin-offs, and proved that LEGO could expand into entertainment media, even after so many different TV shows failed in prior years. The movie also introduced a ton of new fans to the brand, which is probably why sales skyrocketed in the years after it came out. By 2018, on the 40th anniversary of minifigures, LEGO had made more than 650 unique face designs. That's insane when you think about it. We went from one simple smiley face in 1978 to hundreds of different expressions, emotions, and personalities by 2018. This massive library of faces meant that pretty much any character you can think of could be accurately represented in LEGO form, which is a huge reason why licensed themes work so well now. But in 2019, LEGO did something people had been thinking about for a while, but never actually thought would happen. They made their first 3D printed element, part 6627, in that year's Inside Tour set. This was a huge deal because it showed that LEGO was willing to experiment with new manufacturing techniques. But this was only the beginning. 3 years later, in 2022, they made a 3D printed duck as a reference to the wooden duck they used to make back in the day, and they gave it out to LEGO House AFOL attendees. That same year, they also made pogo sticks and handed them out as awards for crowdfunding the Secret Life of LEGO Bricks book. Then in 2024, a green version of the duck showed up in the inside tour set for that year. But the real breakthrough came in the Holiday Express train set. This set featured a train piece, and it was the first time LEGO mass-produced a 3D printed element. All of the other ones were super exclusive, but this one being available to everybody probably means we'll be seeing a lot more mass-produced 3D printed pieces as time goes on. But the last major change I want to talk about happened a few years before this train piece, back in 2021. That year, LEGO released the Spider-Man at the Sanctum Workshop set, and it came with a Doctor Strange minifigure that had a rubber cape instead of the usual fabric ones. This might not seem like a big deal, but LEGO's been using fabric capes since 1993, and after 30 years, Doctor Strange was the first one to get something different. LEGO's still slowly rolling them out, but they've made enough of them that people have started to notice. It's one of those changes that makes you wonder why it took so long, but now that it's here, it's hard to imagine going back. In 2021, a woman named Gabrielle Wall set the record for the fastest 100-meter barefoot run over LEGO bricks. She did it in 24.75 seconds, which honestly doesn't sound that fast, until you remember she did it running barefoot on LEGO bricks. I don't know about you, but stepping on one brick makes me want to cry. So doing it for over 100 meters straight is actually insane. But like I said in the intro, this isn't even the craziest barefoot LEGO record in this video. Before I get to that though, let me show you something way different. In 2019, a guy named David Aguilar built the world's first functional prosthetic arm entirely out of LEGO. This guy was born without a right forearm, and instead of just accepting it, he decided to build his own arm using LEGO Technic pieces. The craziest part is that it actually works. He can pick things up, move his fingers, and do pretty much everything a normal arm can do. He's made multiple versions of it over the years, and each one gets better and better. This is one of those records that isn't just impressive, it's genuinely life-changing, and it shows you can do way more with LEGO than just build sets. Speaking of doing way more with LEGO, let me ask you a question. Have you ever seen a life-size drivable car made entirely out of LEGO? Because that's exactly what LEGO and Bugatti did in 2018. They built a life-size replica of the Bugatti Chiron using over 1 million LEGO Technic pieces, and the best part is that it actually drives. They tested it out and got it up to 12 miles per hour, which I know isn't that fast, but you have to remember, this thing is made entirely out of LEGO. The fact that it can move at all is crazy, let alone driving at a speed faster than the average human can run. This build took over 13,000 hours to complete and weighs over 3,300 pounds. The engine is made entirely out of LEGO Technic motors. So yeah, this thing is 100% LEGO from top to bottom. No metal framing, no real engine, just LEGO. This is genuinely one of the most impressive things LEGO has ever been a part of. And it really makes you wonder what else is actually possible with these plastic bricks. So now that we've seen what it can do with engineering, let's talk about something way simpler, but still just as impressive. Height. Now, obviously, when you're a kid, one of the first things you do with LEGO is try to build the tallest tower you possibly can before it falls over and you have to start all over again. So it makes total sense why there would be a world record for this. The current holder is a tower in Milan, Italy, that's over 114 feet tall. To put this into perspective, that's about as tall as an 11-story building. They used over 550,000 bricks to build it, and it took over 4 days to complete. The thing is, though, this record gets broken pretty often. Before Milan had it, the tallest tower was in Tel Aviv, and before that, it was in Budapest. Each time someone breaks this record, they can only break it by a few feet. So it's really just a competition of who can stack bricks the highest without their tower tipping over and ruining everything. If you thought that tower was big though, just wait until you hear about the biggest LEGO model ever built. In 2013, LEGO built a life-size replica of the X-Wing starfighter from Star Wars in Times Square. And I'm not kidding when I say this thing was massive. It's 42 feet long, 44 feet wide, and weighs over 45,000 pounds. They used over 5.3 million bricks to build it, and it took 32 people working full-time for 4 months straight to finish it. In case it still hasn't hit you yet, let me put the size into perspective for you. This thing is about as long as a semi-truck and weighs about as much as 4 fully grown elephants. When you look at pictures of it, it doesn't even look real. It looks like someone photoshopped it into the picture. But nope, it's 100% real. This is the kind of build that makes you realize LEGO isn't limited by its size. It's only limited by how much time and money you're willing to spend. Clearly, these builders put in a ton of time. But what about people whose goal is the exact opposite? There are people out there trying to speed run Lego, like what people do in video games, only it's putting together a giant pile of bricks. This has been done for countless sets, but the three main ones I want to tell you about are the UCS Millennium Falcon with 7,541 pieces, the Titanic with 9,090 pieces, and the World Map, which has the most pieces out of any released Lego set, at 11,695 pieces. Sets that are this big take days or even weeks to build, depending on who's doing it. But Ivan Yu, Sebastian Hayworth, and Cooper Wright all built their sets in less than 10 hours. These are all insane accomplishments, but let's start with the Millennium Falcon and work our way up in pieces. This record is held by Ivan Yu from Ontario, Canada, and he built the set in just 7 hours, 36 minutes, and 37 seconds. An insane runtime, but it gets better. Sebastian Hayworth holds the record for the Titanic, and at just 15 years old, he built it in 8 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds. But the craziest speed build record of all is held by Cooper Wright. At just 13 years old, he built the world map set in 9 hours, 14 minutes, and 49 seconds. That's only about 40 minutes longer than Sebastian took to build the Titanic, and that set has 2,000 less pieces than the world map. Clearly, Cooper is on a completely different level when it comes to speed building. The amount of mental fortitude you need to build the world map that fast is out of this world. But if we're going to talk about mental fortitude, I have to tell you about the record set by Sonny Molina. But before that, you have to know who he is, because he isn't just some regular guy. Sonny's made it his life goal to collect as many world records as possible, and he's actually doing pretty well. He likes to set records that he knows no one else can beat, like owning the biggest collection of Pringle cans, and most half marathons ran barefoot on consecutive days, which he did 20 of, by the way. Genuinely crazy. Like I said, Sonny isn't just some regular guy, so it's no surprise he holds the world record for the longest distance walked barefoot on Lego bricks. Gabrielle holds the record for the fastest 100-meter dash, but that was over in 25 seconds. Sonny, on the other hand, walked over 5.5 miles on Lego bricks completely barefoot in May of 2021. I can't even imagine how much pain he was in by the time he was done. But the crazy thing is, he had already broken this record twice before doing it again in 2021. I don't know what level of determination this guy has, but clearly it's off the charts. Sonny's pretty psychotic when it comes to world records. So let's talk about something a little less brain-melting: the biggest Lego collections. Just like speedrunning, people hold world records for all sorts of collections. So to keep things simple, I'm just going to show you two: the biggest minifigure collection and the biggest set collection. The person with the most minifigures in the world is Steven Van Dyke. He set this record in 2023 and had 11,803 minifigures to his name. Apparently, his collection got so big that he couldn't even keep them in his house anymore. He beat the person with the previous record by over 2,000 minifigures, so he definitely has this spot secured. But the record for the most sets collected might be even cooler. It's held by a Czech man whose name I will absolutely butcher, but he's been collecting Lego sets since he was 5 years old. I'm not sure how old he is now, but clearly he's a grown man. So he's been collecting for a really long time now. His collection also got too big for his house, but he wanted everyone to be able to experience his collection with him. So he opened the first museum of bricks in Prague. Now, I will say, both of these records come from Guinness World Records themselves, but there's someone out there who actually might have broken both of them: Duck Bricks. He posted an updated collection video about 6 months ago, but unfortunately, I am not watching all that. So if any of you remember the exact amount of sets and minifigures he owns, let me know down in the comments. Moving on though, people don't just collect minifigures, sometimes they put them on display, like our goat from the Czech Republic, which leads us to our next world record: the biggest permanent minifigure installation. This record is held by the Milliard Project, and it was set all the way back in 2006. It's based on one of the most famous buildings from the Industrial Revolution, called the Amaskag Milliard. It's located in Manchester, New Hampshire, and because of how famous it is, people wanted to honor it in its hometown with the most famous toy in the world. So they took over 8,000 minifigures and an unbelievable amount of bricks and made the building in minifigure scale. It took them 10,000 hours to build it, which started in 2004 and ended in 2006 when they set the record. The original building could hold up to 17,000 people, so it really was the perfect building to recreate in Lego. That is, if you're trying to set a world record. Now, this next record is held by LEGO themselves, which is a little unfair, but it's still really cool. Back in 2019, LEGO employees put together the biggest LEGO Star Wars minifigure display ever made using only Stormtrooper minifigures. And the best part is they made it in the shape of a Stormtrooper's helmet. It was 20 feet tall by 20 feet wide, and when it was all said and done, they'd used a grand total of 36,440 minifigures. That's more than Steven's and Duckbrick's minifigure collection combined. 12 people made this record happen, and it only took them 38 hours to build it, which is really impressive. However, it's not as impressive as these next few records, because these are some of the weirdest and most awesome LEGO world records ever set. The first one is the biggest LEGO Great Ball contraption ever made. If you don't know what these are, think of the game Mousetrap, where a ball is constantly on the move through different obstacles. Then completely forget about it, because this ball contraption is way bigger than a board game. The record was set by Mako Arts back in 2018, and their contraption had 259 different modules. If that makes no sense though, just look at how long the video is on YouTube. It took the ball 40 minutes to make it through the entire contraption. Imagine being the guy who had to film all that. They used all sorts of mechanisms, like stairs, conveyor belts, and elevators to keep things interesting, and it definitely worked. The people who made this clearly know a thing or two about engineering, but this next record requires a lot less brainpower, because now I'm going to tell you about the longest chain made with Lego bricks. And no, I don't mean a chain like the ones rappers wear, I mean a literal line put together with Lego bricks. The record was set back in September of 2014 in California, and with the help of 447 people, they made a Lego chain that was over half a mile long. They had to use over 190,000 bricks to build it, but because of how many people were doing it, the record got set in just 6 hours and 53 minutes. The reason so many people were involved was because the event was a part of a charity fundraiser for a state-of-the-art special needs playground called the Rotary Dreamcatcher Playground. It was a pretty big deal in the community, so Lego was the perfect way to bring everyone together. Since people made a chain with bricks, you already know someone had to do it with minifigures too. But the story is actually pretty adorable. In June of 2025, 10-year-old Tyler Recht in Rye, New York wanted to set the record for the longest chain of Lego minifigures. But the thing is, this record didn't even exist. He wanted to be the first and only person to make and hold this record, so he got to work. With the help of some friends and family, Tyler made a chain of 1,816 minifigures on the local high school track. Since he was the first person to do it, there was a chance that Guinness either wouldn't see his chain or wouldn't acknowledge it. But that definitely didn't happen, because Tyler officially has his very own world record on the Guinness website. Congrats, my guy. Anyways, there's one last world record I want to show you, and if you thought Lego holding one was unfair, get ready, because this one's held by NASA. Yeah, the space program that's funded by the US government has a world record with Lego. And funnily enough, you might already know what it is. Back in 2011, NASA launched the Atlas V rocket on a trip to Jupiter. Their plan was to drop a satellite named Juno into the gas giant and watch the footage it captures before it inevitably goes offline. It took 5 years for the rocket to finally get there, and when it did, everything went according to plan. Juno got sent into Jupiter, they got some cool footage, and Atlas V came back. But that still leaves the big question: how is Lego involved in this, and what's the world record? Well, NASA holds the world record for the farthest distance traveled by a Lego minifigure, because on board Juno were 3 minifigures made out of space-grade aluminum. Lego gave them to NASA because they're friends, I guess, and because of that, there's literally no way anyone is beating this record in our entire lifetime. For the first hack, I'm gonna be making a Lego phone stand. Letting your phone sit flat on your desk is super boring, so instead, I'm gonna make a stand for it out of Lego. That way, I can always see the screen and be able to charge it at the same time. The stand itself is pretty easy to make, but one thing I have to be careful of is making sure the cable is high enough off the desk so I don't bend it when I'm charging my phone. To build it, I'm gonna be using these pieces on screen. And just like that, I have a Lego phone stand for my desk. Lego can actually be really useful for random stuff like this. Like, I have all of these toothbrushes all over my bathroom sink, so I'm gonna make a cup to hold them all together. To build it, all I'll need are these pieces right here. Great, now I can actually brush my teeth. No way my toothpaste is that empty. Wait, I actually might be able to make something for this. Hold on. Oh my god, no way that actually worked. I didn't even plan on making a hack for toothpaste, but I guess since it worked, that's hack number 3. For hack number 4, I'm gonna be making a tripod type stand for my phone. I'm definitely going to be using this to record videos in the future, so if you want to make your own Lego videos, follow along, and I'll show you how to make the stand. To make it, these are all the pieces you'll need, so just pause to write them down. Start by connecting the 4x12 plates like this to make your base, then put it off to the side. Next, use 22x4s to make a leg. Do this 4 times and put a plate on top of one of them. Then you'll end up with 4 legs that look something like this. Next, connect them to the base. Then put 2 2x8s in the middle and add 3 2x4s on either side of them. After that, stack up 12 2x4s like this and attach them in the middle of the tripod. Now the base is done, so let's make the part that holds the phone. First, connect a turntable to a 4x4 round plate. This is so satisfying. Then connect 2 4x4 plates, 1 2x14 plate, 3 2x6 bricks, and 4 2x4 bricks on top. Put that to the side, then stack up 7 2x2s and 7 2x1s, and then put them to the side too. Then go back to the holder and attach 1 2x6 plate to the edge of the turntable, and stack either a 2x4 and a 2x2 brick on top, or a 2x6 brick if you have one. Then attach a brick separator, a 1x2 plate, 2 1x2 bricks, and a 1x6 plate across all 3. Then get your stacked 2x2s and 1x2s from before, attach them on either side, put a 6x6 plate on the bottom, and connect the two together. Then you'll have your very own working Lego phone tripod. Oh, and just in case you've been confused this entire time, you don't connect Lego bricks like this. You do it like this. Got it? Great. Now that you know that, you have to make sure you can actually find the right pieces. And I'm guessing most of you are like me and just have a giant pile of completely unorganized bricks. But there's actually something that can help with that. It's an app called Brickit, and what it does is scan Lego pieces and find the ones you need. So if I scan this pile here and ask it to find 1x2 bricks, it finds the right pieces super fast. It's so good at its job that the pieces don't even have to be facing the right way for the app to find it. Like, it found this one and you couldn't even tell it was there. This app can do something way cooler than just find pieces for you though. Once it scans every piece in the pile, it can actually generate sets you can build with the pieces you have, and it even gives you instructions. And before you ask, no, this video is not sponsored. I just think this app is really cool. Since I'm talking so much about scanning stuff, I might as well show you one last one, but this one's for the Lego insiders. Have you ever noticed these QR codes on instruction booklets? Well, if you download the Lego Builder app and scan these codes, you'll earn insider points just for scanning. I'm definitely going to be using this with every set I buy from now on. Okay, I've gone over hacks that can help with random everyday life stuff and ways to make building with Lego easier and more fun. So I think it's time I show you some minifigure hacks. And it turns out that some of them are pretty cursed. For the first one, you can use any regular minifigure, but you'll also need one of these giant keychain minifigures too. Now, obviously, one of these guys is way bigger than the other, but for some reason, their armholes are the same size. Because of this, you can actually put the small arms on the big minifigure and big arms on the small minifigure. Pretty cursed if you ask me. These next few minifigure hacks aren't really cursed, but they definitely use some illegal building techniques. We all know that a minifigure's arms can't be moved very much. Like, you can literally only swing them in 2 directions, but with this hack, you'll be able to put them in positions you've never seen a minifigure do. To do it, all you'll need is a minifigure, a small rubber band, and 2 crowbar pieces. First, take your minifigure apart, completely. Then take your small rubber band and shove it through the armhole until it comes out on the bottom. Then use 1 crowbar piece to feed the rubber band through the other armhole and pull it through with the other crowbar piece. Once that's done, it should look something like this. Very flattering, I know. But now you can wrap that rubber band around the arms and put them in some crazy positions. There's this one, this one, this one, this one. I could basically go on forever. This hack is especially good for all the stop motion animators. It'll definitely make your video way cooler. Anyways, there's one last minifigure hack I want to show you. Minifigure hands are made to be super grippy. Obviously, they can grip stuff like lightsaber hilts, poles, and weapons. But did you know they can also grip tile pieces? As long as it's completely flat on top, it fits perfectly in a minifigure's hand, which is pretty sick. All of these hacks have been pretty good so far, but one of the most useful pieces Lego's ever made is the brick separator, and it can do way more than what Lego shows you in the instructions. Let me show you what I mean. If you spend all your time building Lego like me, odds are you've run into this problem a lot. How am I supposed to take these apart? Or this one. This is literally gonna take forever. Or this one. Yeah, I'm not even gonna try this one. Or worst of all, this one. Steady. Steady. Every time. If you try and solve any of these problems with a brick separator, it seems like they'll never work, especially if you're putting stickers on. I mean, why would you even use a brick separator for that? Well, funnily enough, it's actually really good at doing just that. All you do is put the end of the sticker on the separator, then slowly apply it. It's way easier than using your fingers. We all know what happens when you do that. But what about this abomination? Taking it apart with your fingers is basically impossible unless you want to break your nails. And if you try to use a brick separator, it fails miserably. So how do you do it? Well, all you have to do is use more brick separators. No, seriously, look at this. If you put one brick separator on the bottom, one on top, and wiggle them around just enough, you can take these plates apart pretty easily. As for all these tile pieces, well, Lego actually shows you how to do this in the instructions. But here's the thing, they're wrong. I know, I'm literally saying that the people who made the piece don't know how to use it. But just hear me out. If you do it how Lego tells you, yeah, it works, but it takes a really long time. Instead, what you can do is flip it over, drag it underneath every piece, and take them all off in one fell swoop. So do you guys want your tomatoes back, or... There's still one last problem though. The big plate piece. If you have one of these on a baseboard like I do right here, it can literally be one of the most difficult pieces to take apart in all of Lego. Doing it with your fingers is sometimes possible, but it's usually pretty painful. And since the piece is so big, the brick separator just doesn't work. But if I've learned anything about this little piece over the years, it's that if one doesn't work, more than one definitely will. Yeah, knew that wasn't gonna work. All right, let's try 2. Yeah, okay, I kind of figured. 3rd time's the charm though, right? Okay, this is getting a little ridiculous. Okay, there's no way 4 doesn't work. Yo, are we serious? 5 absolutely has to, right? Okay, thank God. But if for some reason you don't have a brick separator, you can always try using a penny. It only really works on the tile pieces though. After trying out all of these hacks, you probably have a giant unorganized pile of bricks, like the one I scanned earlier in the video. But there are a couple super easy hacks to stop this from happening. Whenever you buy a new Lego set, instead of just dumping out the stuff in the box and throwing it on the floor, what you can do instead is cut it open and use it for storage while you're building. I made mine by taking a box cutter to it and cutting it on 3 sides. After that, I had a super easy place to keep the bags with all the pieces, and it literally came with the set. But if you've just been doing random stuff like I have in this video, this won't work unless you have a time machine. So sometimes what I like to do instead, especially if my bricks are all over the place, is just take a sock and put them all in there. Then after that, I can either dump the pieces out on my desk and organize them, or just dump everything in my Lego bin. But wait a minute, my desk is super unorganized. How am I ever supposed to organize Lego on this? The phone stand still looks good, but there's random stuff all over the place. I'm just gonna go ahead and make something for this right now. Let's clean this up. Okay, these last 2 hacks are going to be about Lego maintenance, because displaying Lego really is a lot of work. For starters, if you plan on putting any minifigures on display, you'd probably want to put them on 2 studs, right? I mean, it just makes the most sense. But you don't actually want to do this at all. The heels on minifigures' legs are known to crack if they get left like this for too long. So instead, you can use a panel piece and put the minifigure on that. That way, it'll stay in place and you won't have to worry about the legs cracking. Another super annoying thing about displaying Lego is dust. Unless you have a giant glass cabinet, your builds are probably just sitting somewhere in your room. And if they're just sitting there, then I guarantee you they're dusty. Obviously, we don't want to take a vacuum cleaner to a Lego set. This is so scary, dude. So what you can do instead is just not let them get dusty. I'm kidding. All you need to do is get your hands on one of those makeup brush things and then use it to dust your Lego set. Hey, Mom, do you have like a makeup brush I can use?
A makeup brush?
Yeah, it's for a Lego video.
Oh yeah.
Okay, thank you. It works really well, so you might want to keep one of these in your inventory, even if you don't wear makeup.